Yeah, we're off. Okay, just gonna do a bit of LA Marzulli and Mike from around the world and see how we go. I've got something for tomorrow that I'm lining up that I'm looking forward to. Okay, guys, here we go. Um, Hang on, one didn't load. Okay, let's go back to this. Yeah.
Look, I'm a 5-star all
Hang on.
5-star Gordon, 5-star Pharaoh with 100,000 power.
There is a supernatural world
Okay.
that surrounds us, and sometimes it manifests to people like you and me. You hear stories about this and so much more right here on Supernatural Confrontations. There is a supernatural world that surrounds us, and sometimes it manifests to people like you and me. You hear stories about this and so much more right here.
Hi, Diane. Hi, Han. Good to see you. Guys, I've got a little bit more to do on Oz. I should finish it this afternoon when I hang up. So hopefully I'll be streaming it tomorrow. I've picked up a lot of new stuff, guys. It's taken me so far about 7 or 8 hours to do it. Hi, Trace. Good to see you.
Very interesting story. This gentleman has to remain anonymous. He's in a particular line of work where he doesn't want this encounter kind of spilling out to his colleagues and coworkers. It's just amazing that here in the West we kind of shun the supernatural. It's even if you talk about things like this, people, even in church groups, people kind of give you the double take like this. So we have the guidebook of a supernatural, but many of us don't believe what's actually there. We look at that, well, that just happened thousands of years ago, but surely it can't be manifesting today. Well, actually it does. And you'll hear so much more about this. But first, a word from our sponsor. Central banks are increasing.
Guys, if you hear Mike from around the world on Paul Begley, can you let me know? Because I'll switch to him straight away.
Their gold reserves due to
Please.
increasing global financial crisis concerns. Billionaires like Ray Dalio to giant fund management companies like Goldman Sachs are turning to
Thanks,
physical
Di.
assets like gold. That's not surprising. Historically, gold's biggest rally happened after the largest recessions in history. In fact, after the 2000-2009 recession, gold prices jumped 50.5%. Think about what that means. Wealth of entire countries are being protected by gold. Wealth of billionaires are being protected by gold. Many people are using gold to keep their billions safe. And Noble Gold Investments can help you protect your own wealth too with gold. It will take you no more than 5 minutes to set up an account. Noble Gold specializes in storing the value of your wealth through gold IRAs. So they're a natural.
Oh, guys, you know what happened this morning? I went down a shopping centre and they've got a Bitcoin ATM machine now. There's a Bitcoin ATM machine in our shopping centre. And you remember Pastor Paul Cioccolani from Discover Ministry says that they're gonna experiment with Australia first, and if it works, they're gonna do it to the rest of the world. So we're changing the digital currency. And today there's a Bitcoin ATM down at the shopping centres. I was really shocked.
And they're giving away a beautiful 1/10 of an ounce gold American Eagle coin with every qualifying IRA or 401k this month. Folks, do something different. You can't go wrong with Noble Gold. Call the team now at 877-646-5347. Once again, that's 646-5347. Or to find out more, please visit noblegoldinvestments.com. That's noblegoldinvestments.com. So once again, I'm just going to let Mr. A, Mr. Anonymous, talk about this, and at the very end, I'll weigh in. So folks, not everybody can come on the record due to their job doing what they do. Sometimes it's better to be left anonymous. And so it is with today's guest, who we'll just call him Mr. A. Chilling story, and we'll get into that in just a little bit. But I just want to say that if you have a supernatural confrontation and you want to come on the record and you want to be anonymous, we honor that here, because we understand people have to make a living, and we're in such a climate today where you say something and you work for a particular establishment, college, whatever.
See, guys, they changed it to digital currency with no cash at all. That's buy and sell. So probably they're going to lead up to you have to take the mark to be able to buy and sell, because that's the goal here.
Or that could be detrimental to your career. So we really honor that. But Mr. A, you had an encounter a while back. Tell us about that, please.
Yeah, back in about 2016, I was laying in bed one night with my son and his mother. He was sleeping right in between us. And I woke up in the middle of the night. I heard some commotion coming off to my right. And I look over, and there are these two large hooded figures. They're wearing like brown robes with large hoods covering their faces. I couldn't see inside. And they were both holding my son. And I thought I was dreaming, so I kind of like shook myself awake, and I heard them whispering to each other, like measure his head, measure his arm, and measure his legs. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was kind of in shock, like, who the hell are these people holding my son? And all I could think of was to start praying. And then I shot up. I heard someone scream. I thought it was his mother, but apparently it wasn't. And they just kind of panicked, dropped my son, and they were just gone.
Now, okay, they're robe figures, and we've heard it.
Okay, I don't know what's going on here.
About the robe figures before.
Got to get the focus so the glare goes.
I've heard similar stories from other people, which mirror yours. How tall were these entities?
If I were had to guess,
Too glary. Hang on, guys.
6 foot.
Look at Molly.
Okay, so they're kind of
Molly.
an average adult in the United States is right around 6 feet, probably 5'9".
It's not focusing.
5'10". So they're not giants. What did the robe look like? I mean, can you describe that robe? Did you see any hands as they were holding the son? Were they holding him, or was he levitating?
It looked like they were holding him. I couldn't really see their hands. I was more focused on trying to see their faces, to see like who they were. But there were these brown hoods, like long brown robes and with large brown hoods. I couldn't see their faces at all. It was just blackness. And yeah, it seemed that it looked like they were holding my son, and they had this like white tape that they were using to measure him.
Now, when you say white tape, was it like tape measures today retract, but old-fashioned tape measures, didn't. They were just, let's say, 3 or 4 feet long, and they were just tapes, and you could go, like this and measure. Is that what we're looking at here?
Yeah, it wasn't like a tape measure or anything. It was like one of those old-fashioned, roll-up tapes.
When they communicated with you, did you hear their voices audibly, or was it telepathic?
Good question.
It was definitely not audible. It was telepathic, because there were no lips moving. I didn't hear anything coming from my ears, because I thought I was still dreaming. That's why I had to like shake myself awake. And I was kind of in shock, because I've never seen anything like that before, and it was definitely off-putting. And after recounting the scenario in my head multiple times, they definitely were not speaking audibly.
Okay, let's go back to when they're holding your son. Now, there's 2 of them, so one could be holding your son while the other one is measuring. Is that what you saw?
Yeah, it looked like they were again, it looked like they were holding my son. I couldn't really see their hands. I was more focused on like trying to get an idea on who they were.
Okay.
But it looked like the one, at least from my point of view, the one on the right was holding the tape measure, and it seemed like he might have had a hand on my son, and the one on the left, in my perspective, was holding my son.
Was your son rigid during this, like a board almost? Was he just, his body was rigid? What was he like? What was he doing?
No, he wasn't rigid. He was he seemed limp. He seemed limp because they were like, fondling with him, like, moving his arm, moving his leg and everything, trying to measure him. And I was just kind of like, get your hands off my son.
Now your wife is switched off. She doesn't wake up, correct?
No, she was not awake at all. And even after the encounter, I picked my son up off the floor, and I was like, you didn't hear or see any of that. And she was like, no, I was asleep. I'm like, are you kidding me? I got kind of upset because I was like, how did you not see any of that?
Right.
I was.
Yeah, she was. They switch people off. Is she a born again Christian or not? Oh, you would know.
I don't know that. We're no longer together.
Okay.
She was a believer at one point.
Okay, but at the time, was she a believer?
Yes.
Okay.
Probably not wholeheartedly.
Okay. Has anyone on either side of the family been taken, been abducted, had encounters that you know about?
Nobody that my mother has never seen aliens, so to speak, but she's definitely had a lot of experiences with the supernatural.
Okay.
And she was probably one of the only other people I've told about this prior, and she kind of helped me through it and was like, just ask God to take it away and protect you, and He will.
Was your grandmother involved in the occult on your mother's side at all?
Not that I know of. She passed away while I was very young.
Okay, all right. When you began to pray, okay, this is all telepathical. You're calling out to Jesus. What was the prayer? Do you remember what the prayer was like?
Yes, I do. I started saying the Lord's Prayer, and I was like, "Our Father who art in heaven," and I was just like, "Save my son!" And
wow.
They just kind of panicked, dropped him, and there was like a flash outside the window, and they were just gone.
So who was the scream? Was one of the entities screaming, or don't you know?
No, that I don't know about.
Guys, I had that sleep paralysis happen to me a number of times. And one of the times I saw a silhouette. I opened my eyes and saw a silhouette. And there was a force field on me, so I couldn't roll over and look because I could see the silhouette against the wall. And I started chanting the Lord's Prayer because I was really scared. And straight away, it all stopped. So he's right. You say the Lord's Prayer, that gets rid of the abductors.
Because when I started praying and I shut
I've had a lot of crazy stuff happen to me, believe me.
up, I heard a woman scream, and I thought it was, my wife at the time, but it was not. It was, have no idea who it was, but it was like a woman screaming, just like a high-pitched screech.
So when they left, did they go through the window?
I don't know. I just saw the big flash of light, and then they were gone.
Was there a craft outside that might have caught your eyeball, like a flash of light, but there was another flash of light outside? Did you see anything outside in a window, anything like that?
No, I didn't see anything outside of the window or anything like that, but the flash of light did come from outside, come from the window, and it was strong enough to illuminate the room and flash the room.
Wow. Did your son have any marks on his body?
No, that was after looking them over and making sure he was okay. There were no marks or anything on his body, no bruising, no red marks, scratches, nothing.
Okay. Wow. Well, Mr. A, thank you so much for coming on the record. We really appreciate it. And what's great about this is, it allows people to hear your story and understand that the supernatural is real. Things are heating up.
Yeah, look, Di, that link says 404, this page could not be found. So they've taken it down at my end.
The dark side is pressing in, but the angelic side is pressing in. The good guys are pressing in too. We are at war, and I just thank you, Mr. A, for coming on the record. So,
of course,
so much. There you have it. We've heard this before. Hooded figures, robed figures, dark figures in the corner, hoodies pulled around so you can't see their faces, all sorts of stuff like this. We've heard this before. And so it seems like the kingdom of darkness, this is how they're dressed. This is the way they manifest. This is what they do. And I just find it incredibly unsettling. And of course, Jesus is the answer. And I realize some of you who may come here, oh, what's this Jesus stuff about? Well, we are in the midst of a cosmic war, folks. We are. We're in the midst of a cosmic war. And this war is spilling out in ways that I've never seen it into our everyday life. That's why the whole UFO phenomenon, which I've been talking about literally for decades, is now manifesting. And it's okay to talk about it because Fox News is talking about it. But it's spilling out. It's spilling over. People are having supernatural confrontations. If you have had a supernatural confrontation, please shoot me an email. And John Adam Hicks, our producer, will be getting a hold of you. That's supernatural@lamarzulli.net. Supernatural@lamarzulli.net. Don't forget, I will be up in Yuba City, not this coming weekend, but the next weekend. Derek Gilbert joins us, and of course, Dave Bryant, Pastor Dave, will be there. I'll also be speaking on Sunday night. That was just added. I'm looking forward to just meeting the folks and hanging out and talking shop. And if you've got a
Hey, John!
Hey there.
Make a difference with every door you open.
Good.
In this song?
That's it. That's the song.
Become part of the Home Care Workforce Support Program with SSI.
Optus Business Mobile Plus is a flexible solution, so when your business changes, you can too.
Great. We'll get you started on Monday.
Get all the SIMs, data and mobiles you need and none you don't. Great business starts with yes.
There is a supernatural world, and sometimes it manifests to people like you and me. This, of course, is Supernatural Confrontations. We have a brand new testimony today. I think you'll find it interesting. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Talia, good to see ya. Yeah, guys, I gave it to my grandkids because Koa, my grandson, he's nearly 4 years old and he needs a night light. And you know how them jellyfish lit up? So I thought, well, that'd be a good night light for him. So I gave it to my grandkid.
I was on a show yesterday, and the gentleman, the host, asked me, well, LA, are there hybrids walking amongst us? Now, he didn't exactly phrase it that way, but what he said was, you know, are these hybrid entities that are being created on UFOs, are they real? And I said, well, in my opinion, they are. And this story, I think, is shocking. Wait till you hear the testimony. We've heard reports like this before. There is a breeding program. I realize that sounds absolutely absurd, but here's the deal. It's no longer what L.A. Marzulli is saying, okay? Brett Baer on Fox News about a month and a half ago stated on the record that some women who are being abducted, taken aboard UFOs, become pregnant. That's all he did. Now, he didn't say what happened to the baby or that they're re-abducted at usually in the third month of the first trimester, at the end of the first trimester. Didn't mention that at all. He just let the thing hang in the air. Unbelievable. That's my wheelhouse. I've been banging this drum for decades. This is the coming great deception.
Amen.
The dragon is trying to create man in his own image. Here's the testimony, the interview. After it, I'll weigh in. History is being made thanks to a new study. There was strong evidence to suggest collagen is one of the best supplements in the world to help reduce the appearance of skin aging. Researchers found the supplement helped improve the skin elasticity and hydration of over 1,000 people. That's why I've been using it. Folks, I take it every day. Other products do not contain the same level of the 5 critically important types of collagen for bright, even, and younger looking skin, like my favorite collagen does. It combines the right types and the right.
Guys, did you see that motorbike hovercraft? They've invented a motorbike hovercraft like you see in Star Wars when they're riding them hovercrafts in the desert and their motorbikes. Or the same as Vin Diesel's Riddick series, the last Riddick. They're riding motorcycles that are hovercrafts. Stunning tech.
Amount of collagen your skin needs to help rejuvenate its elasticity. Unlock your secret to healthy aging with this amazing powder. Health with LA is notorious for selling out due
United States, I think it come from Talia.
To their high demand. If you order now, you'll get 51% off.
See, they had this technology about bikes and hovercrafts back in the first Star Wars movies, but they give you the technology like they tell you what they got, then you'll see it years later come up.
Off free shipping and a 60-day money-back guarantee. Get yours while you still can by going to that's www.healthwithla or visiting the link below. So, Jonathan, first of all, thanks so much for being bold and courageous enough to come on Supernatural Confrontations. And, the supernatural world is real. I say that at the beginning of every show. And people have all sorts of different confrontations, encounters, whatever. Some are good, some are not so good. Tell us about yours, please.
Well, I'll just go ahead and start. I'm a 20-year low voltage electrician, an engineer. I've been doing security systems and design for 20 years now. I do it for the Department of Defense and various applications throughout the southeastern United States, and now I'm on a national level, and I still am in the industry today. I'm also a part-time offshore captain. I do offshore fishing trips and certified captain. I was, at the time, I had just moved back from Louisiana, had just met my now wife, and was moving back to the area. I had started a branch for a company over in Louisiana. And after I was done with that contract, I wanted to move back to Florida. I had missed my home and the fishing. And so I wanted to get back home to Florida as soon as possible. So I took a job with a company here locally. And the guy who was running the company at the time said that he was having some difficulties in the field management side and wanted me to come in for a 1-year contract to just help the guys out in the field and, figure out some of the issues that they were having and see if I could help them out. So on this particular day where this incident occurred, I was riding with a technician. I had a company vehicle at the time, so he was in the passenger seat with me. We were going over to a popular area on the other side of Destin, Florida, called Santa Rosa Beach, like 30A. It's a gorgeous area. It's where the Truman Show was actually filmed with Jim Carrey.
Okay. Yeah.
So we were over in that area working. There's not a whole lot of like fast food restaurants around there, but there is a Hardee's out that way. And so it was lunchtime. We were headed over. There's like a gas station, and then there's a Hardee's side by side. And so I had pulled into the Hardee's, drive through, sat in the line. My buddy, who we'll just call Larry for this, he was working under me. I was in a management role at the time. So anyways, we pull in to grab some burgers and stuff to, before we head back to the job site, and made our order at the, the intercom station there. Pulled up to the drive-through window when it was our time.
Wow.
And Larry had.
Well, Diane took a bit to read, but wow, that Biden's executive order.
Had made the first order, so took his card and my card, ran it up, did the thing. The lady looked like a really normal lady. She had short black hair, a Caucasian woman. And started bringing the food and the payments back. Got our payments back. Handed Larry his food. I remember vividly. I handed the bag to Larry, and I turned back to grab my bag, which was being extended to me out of the window, and that's when the incident happened. She looked me dead in my face, and LA, I'm telling you, I get goosebumps just talking about it right now. When she turned to me, the entire side of her face was like, I can't really say it was like reptilian or anything, but it looked like the inside of like an abalone shell. Like it was a very pearly, iridescent shine. I even remember, like, as the light was hitting it, I could see like a bluish purple iridescence to her skin. Her eye had gone completely clear blue. The other side of her face had not transitioned yet. But when I went to grab the bag, it was just, it was not like the light had reflected. I mean, it was just the clearest thing I had ever seen. Like, it was so vivid, and it just terrified me as soon as I saw it. I mean, I was frozen in fear as I was grabbing the bag, and she knew I had seen her. And I like grabbed the bag and I jerked back very violently, like, what is going on? I've never seen anything like that in my life. She knew instantly that I had seen her transitioning, and covered her face and like bolted from the window. Okay. I remember seeing her run past the little payment stations in the front.
Yeah.
And she kind of disappeared off into the corner. And I'm just sitting there frozen. Larry was digging through his bag, so unfortunately he did not see it.
Right.
And it just happened so quickly. It was just that glance. She saw me, I saw her. I'm sitting there frozen in fear. I looked right back at Larry. I was like, "Did you see that?" And he's like, "No." And he's kind of smiling. And he's like, "What's wrong with you?" I was like, "You didn't see that at all." And me being in a management role, I didn't really want to like say, "I just saw an alien." I didn't know how the guy would respond. I just instantly was still processing in my head what I had just seen. So we pulled out of the drive-through, and I still almost feel that feeling right now as I'm telling you the story.
Sure.
Like the anxiety in my chest, like I can feel that right now. But we pulled into the gas station right next door, and I went into the bathroom and just stared in the mirror, like, what did I just see? Trying to process the entire situation. Kind of got my bearings back, got in the vehicle, and hauled back to the job site. I let my girlfriend at the time know what I had seen. She's now the mother of my children and my wife. So she, I did call her that afternoon and let her know what I had seen. And that's my testimony. That is my encounter with the shapeshifter.
Wow.
Let me ask you some questions. Number one, you are a trained witness. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you're a trained witness. So this is something that, as a captain, a seafarer, I mean, you got to have all your wits around you, stuff like this. So,
Correct.
Your management position, obviously, you're not intoxicated on any drugs, nothing like that. You're just getting something to eat at a Hardee's, minding your own beeswax, and all of a sudden, boom, supernatural confrontation. Now, these windows, usually, when they construct the building, not always, they take into account the position of the sun, where the window is, and everything else, because they don't want the sun beating into the window, right? And just, heating up or it glare, and they take account of all that stuff. So
that window is facing west, by the way.
There you go.
So that time of day around lunchtime, the sun's sitting up above us. It was definitely not a reflection of any kind.
Right.
It was a visible change in someone's facial structure and appearance.
What did the eyes look like before she shifted?
Just regular brown-eyed woman. I mean, I remember she had very short hair, and she was just a regular. I mean, nothing, offset about her right from the beginning.
How old was she?
And I would say probably in her late 30s to mid 40s, somewhere around there.
When she shifted, what did the hair do?
She didn't have any hair on that side. She had no eyebrows on that side. It was just iridescence. So that entire side of her face, as she was looking at me, it just had transitioned almost like if she was half bald. Like I could see the other side of her face and her regular skin and her other real eye, but everything was just. I mean, I wouldn't. It was almost like the Two-Face thing from Batman, Like,
yeah.
It was like she was glitching or something. She was coming out of a cloak or something. I don't know how to describe it, but that's the best way I can.
Did it go down into her neck area, shoulders, or did it just stop at the face? Now she's holding the bag. Let me just get this straight. She's extending the bag. Did the hands do anything? Did you notice anything with the hands?
I did not notice the hands. The face was so shocking. Like I gotta say, I was heavily concentrated on her face. I do remember seeing some of the iridescence down into her neck area.
Phone's ringing. Back in a sec,
The
guys.
eyeball was what really I focused on, like right when I saw her, because you look at somebody and you're always pretty much looking into somebody's eyes. So I remember one of the first things that my conscious had registered was that her eyeball had changed.
Wow.
Were
the eyes the same size? Did they get bigger, smaller, the same size, no eyebrows? You mentioned that.
Yeah, no eyebrows. I cannot say that the eyes were bigger. It just her facial structure really appeared the same, except for like skin texture. The skin texture, like I said, was like a very shiny, iridescent, pearly-like shell. That's all I can say. I know from diving and stuff, that's the closest thing I can relate it to is like that a pearly abalone shell.
Hi, Lynn. Good to see ya.
Very life-changing.
I'll give you a wrench.
I remember it like it happened yesterday. I told my father this several years back when we had reconnected, and I'll never forget it. I will never.
Were you a Christian at the time?
Yes, I've been a Christian. I've definitely had some low points in my life where I had walked away from God.
So
but
let
at
me
the
do it.
time, right before I moved to Louisiana, I had really started stepping into the truth movement, really via waves of learning about elitist societies and stuff. So I was already seeking truth at the time, seeking, I had realized our reality was much different than what we were being told. So at that transition in my time, yes, I was very connected in my spirituality.
So when she, okay, I'm going to act this out. She hands you the bag, you lock eyes. 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000. 3 seconds?
I would say that's accurate. Yeah, I would say about a 3 to 5 second encounter.
So she's stunned.
That's a long time. You're looking at something like that for 3 to 5 seconds. You've got time to register what you're seeing. That's pretty stunning.
You're stunned. When she starts to back away, does she do something like this?
Okay, so I'm trying to remember how. The thing's faced west. She's handing the bag to me kind of sideways, not like directly. She's just like passing the bag along to me. Okay, so really, I just got it was really the side of her face that was transitioning. Maybe, it almost looked like it could have been activated by the sun or something like that. Like it was the side facing, that's west, as the sun's going down during the day. But it's probably.
Yeah, I just checked Mike isn't on yet. He was playing a song, so I thought, what a surprise. So his new CD is $50. Hand bought one and only had 4 songs on it.
Between 12 and 2 p.m. that it happened. As she's handing me the bag, grabbed the bag, and that is right when I noticed it. Is right when I had grabbed the bag. I could kind of, went from Larry to grabbing the bag, and it was just, it was right there in front of my face. And during that 3 seconds, she had to have seen the look of fear on my face, because I don't think she really would have realized that she was transitioning. So she saw the look of fear on my face, because it had to have been pretty shocking to her, because I was terrified. Like, it froze.
How close were you to her? 3 feet?
3 feet away.
So, I mean, there's no way you're going to mistake this for anything but what you just said it was. This is no trick of the light. She's, and the fact, I mean, there are some interesting attributes to this. No eyebrow, whole side of her head is bald, where the other side you can see the hair and the eyebrow. So obviously something is going on. The mask, as it were, is torn off. Now, when she backs away from you, how does she leave the scene? Does she cover her face? Does she turn?
It was very quick. As soon as she saw the look of fear on my face, she covered her face like this. Okay.
Oh.
And
she went like she actually covered her face.
Yeah, she knew that I had seen. She knew that her face is what caused my fear. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
And she turned away from that window and doubled down that aisle right in front of the payment registers. She knew I'd seen it.
Did anybody in the building say anything, do anything? Was there any other reaction?
Yeah. Actually, I do remember a young lady at I guess there was 2 payment panels, in the checkout line indoors. There was a young African-American woman that was standing at one of those registers, and she looked back because I guess it had startled her that she was running from the window, like trying to figure out. Yeah, I mean,
running from the window.
Yes, she's running from the window and headed around the corner. I can't really say that I could see anybody else's reaction other than that one young lady that was at the register.
Okay, my son. Yeehaw. Thanks, Di.
The lady.
Okay. Moo, the big moo cow.
Hopefully everybody can hear me, Pastor.
I hear you perfect. Let me just check.
Hear me good?
Hang on, let me check with everybody out there. I hear you perfectly. And it sounds perfect, says Santa Garza. So thank you. Great. All right. So, Mike, the Queen is going to be laid to rest on Monday. We talked a lot about the new king coming in, how that there's going to be some, you brought it up, there's going to be some major adjustments or changes globally. So that's big. And then we see the Russians on the run. Is this true? Or is this a head fake, and then he's going to drop something heavy on everybody?
I don't reckon Russia's really on the run, guys. I think that's the West propaganda. You watch.
Well, you know what? It is so much propaganda out there. The only way to really know the story is to be on the ground. Really, you got to be on the ground. It's almost like just about everything is turning into propaganda, right? Because on some fronts, Russia has absolutely secured places and gained ground, right? And well, just a couple days ago, some of the forces in Ukraine were complaining that their soldiers are kind of weary, right? But in the news, you don't hear that, right? So what you have here.
Hannah, I saw that the US has military fighting. I think that was on something like Canadian Prepper, wasn't it? Something like that.
You have two perspectives. There's always going to be propaganda in conflicts, always. And this one has more propaganda than I've ever seen. Is to keep the troops motivated, right? Despite what happens. But regardless of that rhetoric, we have a guy who is really making strides in his own mind, and he will resort to whatever he needs to do to save his country. If even if his countrymen turn on him, of course, at the beginning of it, there were 58 people.
Oh, you sent me the link, Han. I knew I read it somewhere. Thank you.
Who were against Putin and his own, cabinet. So, that was day one. So it always happens. It's just that the West is highly invested in Ukraine, more than more than most, right? Because he's too close to the NATO borders.
That's what it's about.
Number one.
It's about the fact that NATO. This is almost as if it's a war with NATO. I mean, you know.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
You agree with that?
Yeah. And so when you hear the news, especially coming from, I hate to say this, I really hate to say this, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. When you have a lot of too many Democrats, right?
Yeah.
Certain types of Democrats, I'll say, when they get on somebody's side, you really got to watch, because it's almost like, well, you have it on both sides, but it's almost like there's a deep-rooted evil in certain individuals who they are just, they're not going to change their direction for anything. They don't care how many fall in the path. They want their, they want their way. And so you really have to watch. My personal case is, if the world begins to agree with it, I'm turning the opposite direction, because if the world agrees with it, how can it be right?
So with this going on, Zelensky actually was seen in one of the cities that was taken back, helping raise the flag over the city, taking down the Russian flag, putting the Ukrainian flag back up. Yet I heard there was an accident. Somebody crashed into his motorcade, and also somebody blew up a car that was supposed to belong to President Putin. So are the assassins loose right now?
Well, of course they're going to have operations within operations, but just be reminded, there's a lot of propaganda. Some of the video shots that people have seen, they've also seen at earlier times, right? Right. So, and in this digital age, people might want to realize something, that they can, by way of AI, they can recreate, they can, first of all, they can take us talking, right? You're on video, they can turn you into any person they want to, just like that, right?
I know.
And then show it to everybody. So they can also change your voice to anybody who wants to. So with all these deceitful things, the only outcome is going to be what we see at the end of it, right? Unfortunately, the world, NATO is against Russia. Russia is tied with Iran and China strongly, right? So that's what you're seeing. You're seeing a polarized world really coming together against each other. But you really have to be careful on the news, because these guys they're crafty. You got to remember too, the CIA was 100% hired for CNN and NBC and all these other folks a long time ago. In fact, most of your three-letter guys, CID, DOE, DEA, DHS, DOD, NSA, NRO, all these guys, right? They have a vested interest in public news. So the only news you can really trust is spiritual news, and it does not come from NBC and CBS and all those folks.
Sure don't. No, you can't believe those guys. And I mean,
no,
they might tell a little truth every now and then, but just to make it look like
it's
legitimate.
Convenient.
Yeah, it's convenient, right? If it's convenient.
Yeah.
So
you know what?
Yeah.
Pastor, one thing, these guys, first of all, they didn't warn anybody about these rains coming, right? They didn't. Nobody said a word, right? We talked about it here on the coming apocalypse, and I'm giving a show a few times, but nobody else was warning about the rains, right?
No,
Nobody.
nobody.
And look what it's cost. There are certain insurance companies that are almost shut down because of the rains, right? They can't pay out insurance for anybody. It's about to get a lot worse, and there's something else we're going to have to deal with. So I'm hoping everybody can listen tonight at certain things that come forward, because again, nobody warned about the rain. That came through spiritual channels.
Right.
That's what came through spiritual channels.
Okay, so you were warning us the rains were coming. You said there'd be a water event in Arizona. There was. We've seen the massive rain that fell in St. Louis, flooding. We saw what happened in Eastern Kentucky, devastating, deadly. We saw the floods hit 15 inches of rainfall in Dallas. We've seen 1.5 foot of hail in Colorado Springs. We've seen massive rainfall in Mississippi, flooding. I think people are still underwater down there. There's been rain. Now we just had in Georgia. Now Montreal last night flooded. Unbelievable amount of rain. The water that came in from Hurricane K dropped a year's worth of rain in the Death Valley, creating waterfalls of rain. This is unbelievable. And then Pakistan, 1,500 people are dead from the rain. There's been 12 typhoons hit Taiwan and now smacking into China. I mean, I could go on this all off the top of my head. I mean, so think about it, Mike. What's going on here?
Yeah, and in Arizona, you know, it damaged 2 DOD centers. One coordination center that was underground. It flooded those places.
Wow.
They're gone. You're talking about, I think one of them is $46 billion facility. And that's just one. The other one it had to be at least $900 billion.
No way. He's saying there was an underground facility worth $46 billion that just got flooded out. Wow.
It's been there for a long time. They're destroyed. They're totally destroyed. So, you know, back then when we began talking about this, we had more and more particles pouring into the upper atmospheres, causing what I coined atmospheric compression. That's getting worse. It's getting far worse than it ever has been. So, when you remember when I said expect the rainfall in one storm to drop 5 to 7 inches of rain, you remember that?
Yeah. Well, it's happened about 10 times.
Double. Expect that to double. That means the same situation they have in places like, you know, Pakistan, somewhere like that. We're going to have those same issues right here in the U.S. And that's coming fast, right? Because nobody can go up there and you can't sweep away these particles or shut them out. So we have a real water event coming, meaning lots of damage. And people somebody has to notify people about this, because people are not talking about it. They keep talking about global warming and carbon taxes and you know, putting tiny homes up all over the place. That's not going to alleviate the rain. They've also tried to stop two of the storm fronts that came in. The Air Force did. It did not work. JPL, NASA, and certain other space agencies attempted, right, to draw the rain away from the U.S. It did not work. It's not working. The particle count in the upper atmosphere is too much. Nothing they have is working. They even fired up 2 of the HARP systems in Europe. Zero effect, no effect. So we have some real issues here, and it's just beginning.
Mike, what about Tropical Storm Fiona now? I hope it doesn't hit Florida. It's going to do some damage, I understand, in Puerto Rico. It's expecting 4 to 8 inches of rain, maybe 12 inches of rain in Leeward Islands. And the question is going to be, will this thing turn away? We've been kind of fortunate with the hurricanes this year, haven't we?
Yeah, we haven't really. We had 4 that were about to form, but the waters are so warm, causing massive instabilities. It's very difficult to predict. We know that something is coming up to the Gulf, right?
Right.
We know that, which would be a bad time, because if that happens, some of the rigs out in the Gulf are not quite stabilized as they should be. Some of the reserve centers not stabilized, and we could have some of that gas is coming up, starting to do things. They're not talking about any oil leaks or anything else, because of all these folks who are talking about save the planet, right? They don't want to start a big thing with them, so they're going to suppress any of the oil rig issues that they have, and gas line issues. But that could really spark the ignition point. If we have a storm that hops over Florida into the Gulf. Now that storm, based upon water temperatures, it could stagnate right there in Puerto Rico. In fact, it could travel. There's no real track, and I'll tell you why. The waters are so warm, this thing could drift all the way up to South Carolina, totally skipping Florida, right? But I'll tell you this, it's going to form something, and something will come through the Gulf at some point. Yeah, right. So
just a matter of time. One of these storms is going to do it. Mike, what about also? You told us to watch out for ice sheets to break off, especially in Antarctica, but we did have a major glacier break loose in Chile. I actually saw the footage. I can't show the footage because I can't put it up. I don't know how to do it exactly right. But it was incredible footage of a glacier breaking loose in Chile's Patagonia or Patagonia, whatever it's called. Do you know anything about that? And is that part of what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's right down in the area where the monster is. right? There's a monster down there. It will give way. And when it gives way, it's going to change ocean levels by a significant amount, right? It's going to change it. It is going to give way. It's already past the point where a lot of people were worried, well, you know, if it gets past this point, it's most certain, it's 100% going to, you know, shear off. Well, it's already past that point. And it looks like the ground is heating up to a degree that is, it's almost like this conveyor belt effect. Warm water hits it, the melt off, it's exponential in how it melts. And so it will most certainly break off. We also have the same issues. It's north and south, right? North and south poles. We have the same exact issue. And so, you know, that's only a matter of time. When that takes place, every coastal city will be flooded. Every single one is going to be flooded. Unfortunately, this is something that people are going to have to deal with. Now, the timing of that is going to happen pretty soon. There's not going to be a warning, obviously, right? Two underwater observation platforms, you'd call them, were already destroyed because they were crushed under the weight of some of that ice because it's already shifted. It will shift the rest of the way. And when it does, it's going to change ocean levels significantly. That's
Are we aware? I don't think that information's been released in the media.
They're not going to release it because that would, if that were to circulate, Pastor Paul, it would really scare those who understand water currents, water rises. They do the formulas and the modeling on volume. The metrics themselves would scare people to pieces. And then, of course, that would cause a big panic. Right? So they don't want to, they're not going to do that. They're going to keep giving out propaganda that everything is okay if we just pay the carbon tax, right? Unfortunately, it's not the way it works. It's becoming real dangerous, right? Very dangerous. And it's almost like, I don't know, when things become dangerous, I do get a bit bolder. So everybody forgive me if I get a bit forceful. But, you know, when lives are at stake,
right,
I tend to spring to action. And to be honest with you, there are going to be lives at stake. Because people are, it's almost like they're in a cloud. They're not paying attention to most of these events. They listen to the news, which downplay critical things, and people are missing things. They're just missing things. For example, this winter. Who's warning about this winter? People should start preparing now for this winter, right? The power grid is not going to sustain ice. We already know we're going to have ice, right? Ice is going to cause power outages. So some places are going to be without power for 7 days, 14 days, you know, so on and so forth. If certain transformers are overloaded because everybody's on a network now, right? They're going to cut off power stations to certain areas to save the rest of the power grid. And are they telling people about this? Now, even after we have this water event, everything will dry up. Everything is going to dry up. There'll be no more rain. You just watch, you know, I stake my life on this. When this water event ends, we're not going to have rain. The rain won't dry up. It's not going to rain at all. The rain will stop. Part of that is due to radiation. We have a celestial issue happening, right? So people ought to get ready for a reddish type of mud everywhere with fog. We're going to see fog everywhere. Fog will obscure most things concerning traffic. We're talking about.
Oh, I lean on it. Hang on. I lean on the remote, trying to get rid of the glare.
Day and night fog, Pastor Paul. Just think about that. Day and night fog, humidity, outrageous humidity, right? Heat that's unbearable. And of course, when things are obscured like that, crime is going to be all over the place. So this is the type of environment that's coming, right? It's forming, it's coming.
Is this going to be part of the winter we're going to have or into next year, 2023?
Well, this will, I personally, I believe after this water event, right? After the water event, when everything starts to settle again, the radiation is going to cause another cycle. And part of that's going to be due to flooding. This will cause a lot of some of that reddish type of stuff all over the place, right? Real staining everything. But the fog issue, red mud. And the fog, which will be a two-part thing, because some of the red mud is going to come from volcanic ejections. We have something volcanoes, And there's something called a red volcano that they don't really discuss. But they're phenomenons, I guess you could say. They call black hole. They push up certain types of material from deep in the earth, which cool off and get spit all over the place. Well, with one substance, they kind of break apart when they're in the air to the point where they turn into dust. That goes into the atmosphere and it comes down as rain. This will be exacerbated, complicated by some of the iron that's coming in by way of space. And by the way, when people start seeing the red dust come from the sky, which is in fact iron oxide and some other compounds, it's going to cause a problem with our sun. Just in case everybody missed this point, iron and suns as a bad mixture, because iron can cause any sun, right, to kind of wink out. It can kind of wink out a little bit, and that will cause even greater fluctuations in our weather, right? And we don't need that. That will cause an extremely darkened sun, but extremely hot. Now, they're not going to warn anybody about this stuff. People are going to see it slowly start to form. It's going to cost lives. It really will. And that's one of my major concerns. Whether people are believers or not, the populace, because people that are not believers, right, they're just sinners who have not yet been saved by grace. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
But a lot of people are going to pay the price because of ignorance, because they're not taking precautions. Right? They're not, people could prepare certain things in their homes for this, so, just like being in a dust storm or something like that. And,
yeah.
But they're not going to do
it. With this red dust that's coming, it's iron oxide coming from space, settling in on us, staining everything red, causing a reddish fog and mud. How does it for your breathing? What's it do for the breathing?
It's not going to be good. Okay. People are going to have a hard time breathing. Very difficult. In fact, fastball at sea level, right? I doubt if anybody during that time when it hits, because you're talking about fog everywhere, right? Which is going to be about 100% humidity for just a little while. It's going to be almost impossible to breathe. Now we are going to have atmospheric pressure changes big time, right? Which means it's going to be very tough to walk, very tough to breathe, very tough to do things at lower altitudes. It's going to be very tough. And so, we've been blessed because for the most part, we have not had a heavy atmosphere. We've not. There's a code word called heavy cloud that's coming into play. It's an actual code word. And that scenario is about to happen, right? So expect political things to move a lot faster. They're going to be in position before those things really take effect. Everybody will see it.
Folks, we got Mike around the world with us tonight, we're really talking a lot of apocalyptic, and I guess I'm assuming that Planet X, the binary system, has a lot to do with the shaking of the sun or creating the sun's volatileness. We've seen the backside of the sun, I think about a week ago, with an enormous eruption. Had that been facing us, we'd have been in trouble. You've also talked about these incoming clouds, these two clouds of debris. There was a mysterious fireball that lit up the sky in Scotland last night that was outrageously huge. And I would say, and this is happening more and more, it was 37 fireballs. Mike, any thoughts on, is this the beginning of a whole lot worse?
We're going to see them, they only publicize what people take pictures of and can notice. Obviously, a lot of people are not out in the ocean, right? It's very difficult to see over the horizon. Sometimes because the Earth is, it's kind of round, but it's very difficult to see over the horizon, so they won't report that. But in South America, they're seeing a lot, and quite a bit. In fact, it's kind of standard to them to see that. It's kind of common. So these things will increase because we're not going to miss what we're going into. We're just not going to miss it. It's much larger than our galaxy, than our solar system, much larger. So we're going to get pummeled. That's just a fact. It will start out small. We'll have fragments coming in. Soon it's going to be commonplace for people's homes to catch on fire from inbound objects.
What?
Right? We're going to see more and more death from people getting hit by small meteorites. It already happens every single day. Somebody is dying from rocks falling from the sky every single day. They really don't, they don't do that. When this pressure change begins to happen, which it will probably, I give it about 4 or 5 months, that pressure change is really going to kick in. Part of it's already kicked in, which is why a lot of people have swelling in the joints. It's kind of like when a storm is coming, your joints hurt, right? Because that pressure difference causes swelling, right?
Yeah.
And swelling hurts, and that's your body actually protecting itself.
I'm trying to get it to stop
It's
flashing.
actually regulating itself from exterior pressures. Well, this will increase and it will fluctuate. Women are going to be the best indicators for whatever happens on the sun. They always are. That their biological cycles are tied to the cycles on the sun. Their bodies are, not their spirit, just their bodies.
Right.
They're tied to the sun at very intimate levels.
Right.
So they're going to be great indicators for activity on the sun.
So
you can watch them and tell. Some women haven't put it together yet, but there are going to be occasions every time they have certain sensations or feel a certain way, there's going to be some type of flare, some type of ejection from the sun. It happens every single time.
Yeah.
Right? So they're good.
They're going to feel more aches and pains, aren't they? And maybe even affect them emotionally in some ways.
Their cycles are tied to the sun too, so they should expect a change in their entire, all of them, all their biological functions are going to be, most of them will be altered by that. So they also should remember, when they get stressed out, just say, well, it's just their body changing. Don't go looking for a reason why you're stressed out. Just kind of rise above it. Don't ever let it get to you. Rise above it. But yeah, Pastor Paul, they're not going to discuss these things, and it's unfortunate.
Is this why we're going to need filtration? Is this why we're going to need these masks that you talked about?
Yep.
Because of this.
Well, we're going to have, not only are we going to deal with dust, right? As I said last week, we're about to go into a new phase of volcanism. So ash is coming. Lots of ash is coming. In fact, many are going to have to up and move because of an ash environment. Given the particle count that's in our upper atmospheres, ash itself is going to that's going to undo global warming for a lot of people, right? Because it will begin to kill vegetation in large areas. We're going to have an issue with crops, vegetation, all that, right? That's coming fairly quickly. It's coming quick. And a lot of people know about it. They absolutely 100% know about it, Pastor Paul, because they study the foliage now. They know it's being affected now. They know it is. We have insect migrations, rodent migrations taking place. We have saltwater intrusion, which is bad for plants and trees and everything. It will kill a tree, saltwater will. And so all this stuff is starting to happen, especially in California, right? So we're going to have issues like we've just not experienced these issues on a large scale. And God's not going to destroy the earth by water again. He's not going to do that. He already said he would.
Right.
And like the rainbow is a sign between us and him that he will not destroy the earth. But I got to ask this question: why would God show a rainbow in the first place? Why would he do that in the first place? Because if it's a sign to himself, he made that as a sign to himself. It means that certain places are worthy of destruction.
Right.
But he's not going to do it by
remind
water.
himself that no, you said you wouldn't do this. Okay.
I know people think they're beautiful, but I've tracked everywhere people start seeing a lot of rainbows, and it never ever fails. Something significant happens in those places, right? Within about 4 months of a rainbow every single time. And if you start seeing multiple rainbows, it's almost like the things with people change. Horrible things start happening. So.
Mike, this red heifer thing, of course, we've been talking about it in the broadcast. It just broke this afternoon. 5 red heifers coming out of one farm, Rockwall, Texas. Now, they're not allowed to use any red heifers that are genetically altered, or I should say gene spliced, that kind of thing. So these rabbis did this. From what I understand, it was 21 red heifers on this one farm. They sent a team of rabbis from Israel, including from the Temple Institute. 5 of them were perfect.
Just the fact they're looking for the red heifers says a lot, doesn't it, guys?
They even tested their blood type, because you can't ship an animal from anywhere in the world into Israel unless the blood is perfect. You can't have any disease. They all are kosher. These 5 had just arrived today. Your thoughts on the first of all, the political ramification of this, and the prophetic ramifications of this.
Well, first of all, have you noticed that brings the world closer to a very unique time, and of course, we don't need sacrifices or anything else. But I think people have to understand that God closed their eyes. He did that. God closed their eyes so we could receive the word. If he didn't blind them, we wouldn't receive the word. So he did it on purpose. And he's also going to redeem whomever he so desires. We're his creation. We didn't create God. God created us. So, I'm just saying that because people really are believe the business of the Jews with the living God.
Yeah,
right?
I'm glad you are, because immediately when we start talking about this prophecy, that a lot of folks become anti-Semitic real quick.
Yeah.
And then they start saying, Begley, don't you know Jesus' blood was good enough? Like I don't know. Like I don't know that.
I think some people don't realize.
Yeah.
One thing they don't realize, Pastor, it's just the other day. I was back in Zechariah, and I get nosy. Now, I'm not a theologian or anything, guys. I'm just nosy in the Word of God, right? I read the Word so I can know the Father and Christ more every single day. But in Zechariah, it says that, I was reading something that kind of stood out, speaking of the red heifers, is that Jesus will come back, and people will say, "Who put those holes in their hands?" He said, "My friends did this to me."
Yep.
So that tells you right there, when he said the day is going to come to pass, he's gonna cut off all the idols out of the land, all of them. That tells you right there the state of the people. Right?
Yep.
He says there'll be no more remember. He's going to cause the prophets and unclean spirits to pass out of the land, because when his powers is when he's right there's no need for a spread of his gifts and power. We're going to be, it's going to be totally different here. Everything will be consolidated back to the Lord. Will be one with him. So this is his coming back, right? Because if you don't have prophets, then all these gifts are not spread out like that. And so Christ is here. So he's talking about him coming back, but with his own people. He didn't condemn them. They would, if they ask him, who put these holes in your hands, and he says, "My friends did this to me." He's embracing them. He's not condemning them. He's embracing. See, a lot of people look at this and say, "Well, all Jews are condemned." No, they're not.
No.
God blinded them so we can tell it, because the scriptures say the power of the holy people must be distributed.
Yep.
We wouldn't have what we have if they could see, right?
Yep.
We just went, even in the book of Jeremiah, it said if they were to change their ways and turn directly to him, the whole world would be in worship to the Lord right now based on that. That's right. We would not. We would be Gentiles. We wouldn't even be born, probably. We'd be able to change a long time ago. So, but he's going to bring whom he desires back. He said he would cleanse them. He's going to bring them through a refining fire. He's going to refine them as silver is refined. He's going to try them as gold is tried. Right? And then at the end of that, they're going to call on his name. That's the beautiful part. So that is redemption. When he comes back, he's going to restore everything. These red heifers point to the activities that take place right before his coming.
Amen.
That's what a lot of people don't understand. That's why the Jews, that's God's business. Yeah. Right? Because if people start speaking against him, they're going to regret it. Anybody who went against his people, even in their state right now, God will deal with them directly when he comes back.
Yep.
He's serious about his people.
You don't want
He's serious about his people.
So think about it. Jesus said, they asked him, where in the prophecy, they said, "So where did these wounds come from?" He said, "I was wounded in the house of my friends." That's right. Jesus said, right. "I was crucified."
That's right.
And put to death basically by my friends who didn't know who I was, which was the Jewish people. And but God said, "I blinded the Gentiles in part, the Jews in part, so the Gentiles could come in."
That's right.
And then he says, for us who are Gentiles, we're like wild olive branches. We have to be grafted back into the natural.
Right.
We can
Amen. That's right.
And then he says, "And all of Israel shall we say." So how does Israel get saved? Well, they have to come to the realization.
That's right.
That the idols that they have set up and the false gods that they have tried to worship.
That's right.
And that's, it's just truth. It's gonna be torn down. They're gonna begin to realize they followed the wrong one, and they're gonna turn to Yeshua. So let's not get negative about Jewish people not understanding, because if they did, you wouldn't know what you're doing. You would be lost. I would be lost. So
I can't be here without Christ. I just can't do it.
No.
Yeah, so I can't do that.
We need to embrace our look. We really, and don't speak evil about the Jews, as you just said, Mike. The Bible says, "He that curses them, you'll be cursed. But if you bless them, you'll be blessed." I mean, it's pretty.
They're going to go through some stuff.
The reason we have a lot of this misunderstanding is because most people don't know the Bible, and they listen to internet teachers. I know I'm on the internet, Mike. We're on the internet, but I'm talking about people who just come out of nowhere and all of a sudden became an internet expert. on prophecy or scripture. Guys, just because they live 50 miles from your house and they got a webcam
8 years ago, Diane. That's surprising.
doesn't make them an expert in scripture or in prophecy. So read your Bible.
You know what I tell people all the time, basketball? I have to tell people, I say, God is the expert of his own word. He's anointed certain people to complement his word, but God is the expert. And you have some people who talk with anger. There's just sheer anger. The Holy Ghost has nothing to do with a person's anger, right? Nothing. And understanding from the Lord is pure, peaceful, kind, gentle, easy to be entreated. So it's not, anger and all this kind of, that cultivates flesh. The very thing we're to die to, right? We're to die to flesh. But yeah, Pastor, a lot of people, they don't quite get it, but they will.
Well,
I think some will, some won't.
I think it's good. Like I said earlier when we started the broadcast, that I'm invited to be on the Coast to Coast Sunday night after our Sunday night show. On Sunday night, I'll be on from 10 to midnight Pacific Coast time on Coast to Coast with George Norrie. I mean, we know these guys talk about a lot of paranormal stuff and a lot of stuff, but 2 million listeners want to know, why is this red heifer situation? Why is it so significant? Well, what I'm going to do is be able to walk them right down the path to the cross. That's where I'm going. It means Jesus Christ, Messiah, the Son of God, is returning, and people need to get their heart right with God. I'm going to use this opportunity to share that. And if I ignore what's happening and say, I don't wash my hands, I don't want to do the red heifer thing, I don't want to do the third temple, I can get that way if I want to, but then I make the word of God none effect. And so, Mike, what you've been doing so eloquently is helping us understand a lot of these things that are happening in geopolitical issues, things that are happening in the spiritual realm with mankind and their heart way off track in the heavens. Let's talk about another report that came in, Mike, and that is there's a report that just came out that there's going to be, it's predicted that the big one is going to hit the San Francisco Bay Area by the year 2032. The study says there's a 62% chance of a deadly, at least 6.7 tremor or higher. What is your thoughts on that, Mike? It's hard. Nobody can predict these.
Okay.
What do you think?
My first thought is, who reversed the last two numbers?
The reverse of the last two numbers.
They put 2032. It's supposed to be 2023.
Whoa!
So who reversed that? The scientific studies state that at any time, right? At any time, it could, something catastrophic could happen in California. That's the real scientific report. Who reversed the last two numbers?
So you're not saying
that's all I want to say.
It's not
Plus,
2032. It's not 2032. You're saying it should have read 2023.
That's right. That's right.
Whoa.
That's right.
Okay.
Well, think about this. We have nuclear facilities in California, right?
Yeah.
The equipment is falling apart, it's breaking down. We have people moving out of California, right? Crime is starting to take over in certain areas of California. The weather is beating California to pieces, right? Just the weather itself. We have, there's certain, it's been quiet over there with earthquakes, but the southern hemisphere is starting to pick up as far as earthquakes are concerned. And you know that Mexico, in Peru, in those places are a big deal to me, right?
Yep.
Because if that happens, if that coast plate is disturbed, so much for California's stability, because that plate is directly tied to, it's almost like a bottle cap is sitting on top of magma there, right? If that bottle cap is shifted, California is going to have a bad day. It really is going to have a bad day. I would go so far as to say this too. God will give warning, right? God gives warnings, correct?
Yeah.
He's not going to have his people ignorant of those things he will do. He's always going to let us know what he will do, the Christians. But the Christians have to open their eyes, and they have to stop saying that man is doing everything and consider something. It was God who said, he stated the events that we would have, right? And a lot of times in prophecy, it doesn't matter how they happen.
Yeah, guys, we've all got a good sense of humour here. We often get a laugh, so it's fun doing this.
It just matters that they happen, right? And in California, it's gone quiet there. But South America is starting to pick up with activity. of volcanic activity. There's a new swell in Brazil, which means we have a big volcano about to go that nobody really expected. The migrations are going to get, they're going to get worse, but California is starting to dry up too. It's starting to dry up. Things are happening in California that people ought to pay attention to. Things, God will make it, if somebody out there was a living God, they wanted a person to leave a specific state like he did before Katrina, right? Because a lot of people, all of a sudden, they had problems in Katrina right before Katrina hit. And you know what? There was a guy saying, listen, pay attention to your issues and problems and this, that, and the other. They weren't listening, right? They persisted to stay there. Well, I'm going to just overcome it and rebuild, right? That's what they said. So eventually Katrina came, a lot of people lost out. In other words, God gave warning, but they didn't want to listen to the minister. That's what happened. When they tied those casinos to the land, and they, you know what they say, a lot of ministers said, don't tie the casinos to the mainland. You'll curse the mainland, right? Don't do that.
Yeah.
Well, they did it. And guess what happened? Katrina came up shortly after that.
Yeah, it did.
You didn't, it was very painful, right? But there were indications of Katrina. There were indications, just like there are indications all over the place. Before all these fires and things start, there's always like this foreshadowing.
There's always a warning. There's always a prophetic warning.
If we pay attention, if we are standing up spiritually and pay attention, because somebody in the body of Christ is armed with what we, with what we need to have. But especially like right now, I start to hear more and more people talking about food items, right?
Yeah.
But these are Christian companies talking about food items.
Yeah.
That's very different than buying it from eBay or the internet, something like that. When you have Christians convicted to help people out, I'm talking about the sincere ones who want to help people out. Something is happening. God's not going to put something on somebody's heart for nothing.
And not charge them $49, Paul.
Nothing God does is for nothing. It's always going to be for something. And so we have a few events. A lot of people are going to get waking up to some very bad things. Pastor, I can tell you right now, they're going to listen up right after these events. They're going to know it. But it's going to be a very short time frame between them. And we have a war we're looking at, right? Wars on the horizon. And these earthquakes in California, you watch, mark my words, there's going to be somewhat of a small devastation in California. A shaking, but it will not be, I'm not talking about an earthquake. A different type of shaking will happen in California, right? And that's going to be just like an earthquake. I hope that people pay attention.
What's that even mean? A different kind of shaking?
Right?
Is that a cultural shaking, a spiritual shaking, a political?
There'll be something that affects, it's going to affect people at their core, right? It can mess up households. It's going to be just like an earthquake, but it won't be an earthquake. Right? It won't be an earthquake. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like that coffin, right? Yeah. I'll tell you something, Pastor Paul. That coffin is close. That coffin is close because I keep trying to forget it, right? Yeah. And amazingly, a lot of people, they used to ask about it, but they're not now.
And one person
kind of drifted away, but the Lord won't let me.
One person tonight. One person tonight. I've been monitoring the chat room and just kind of keep an eye on it. One person said, "Are we going to talk about the casket tonight?" I think it's in the back of people's minds, but you're right. Folks hope it will go away. Yeah, the Queen died, and you said last week, no, that's not the Queen. It's supposed to be a man. Are we getting close though?
Yeah, we're getting close. We're very close. I tell you what, it coincides with the stone steps. Both events, the casket is.
Yeah, I agree, Han. You should say who's in the coffin.
Going to be the icing on the coffin, but the stone steps is something that's quite unfortunate. It will cause polarization.
Hey guys, you know what I noticed? You know how they put the Queen's coffin on the back of that artillery gun, and she got carted through England on the back of that artillery gun or whatever it was. If you look at it, the coffin's crooked. It's not flush with what it's on the gun carriage it's getting carried on. It's actually crooked. It's really
like nobody's ever seen it. There's going to be problems in the streets at that time. It will require armored cars.
Is the Supreme Court part of this? Is that the?
No, I'm not sure about all the back elements. I do know that the stone steps had a person up there with people in uniforms at that time I'd never seen before. Right? We're talking about something that this dream, vision, whatever you want to call it, was back in 2011. It's back in 2011. I know the person it is, right? Which is why I thought it was impossible. It's not impossible. I thought it was impossible. I said, well, it must be something else. But then I saw the vehicles. I said, no way. Remember when they were giving armored vehicles to all the police stations all over the place?
I remember
then
that.
They changed
the
tactical uniforms. Yeah, they changed the tactical uniforms. I said, no way this is happening. And then everybody changed their uniforms, right? The place.
Good pickup hand. Maybe it's the Antichrist in the coffin. And then he comes back. Good pickup. Maybe it is.
That was a in the street where it happens. It was kind of compressed on one side because it was full of people, and that's been closed off for a long time. Now it's not.
Is this individual in office currently in some type of office in our country?
Well, let's just say this person has an affiliation, right? They have an affiliation. They're well known, but this person is going. I'm telling you, people are not going to like this, right? It's almost like there's going to be a deep hatred that comes out of people. Things won't be the same even after that.
Is it because of the way this person dies, or is it because people?
Well, no, we're talking about now. The Stone Steps is a person that they had an escort beside them, right?
Okay.
On both sides, they had an escort beside them. People in special uniforms. They had an escort beside them.
Okay.
As they came out that building, the crowd. I mean, the crowd was so jam packed, and people were showing, signs, and it was hatred, and there were threats, and you could tell that people were looking at each other like, they had this look in their eyes, like I'm gonna kill the person next to me or something like that. So it wasn't good. They had to get this guy down to the armored car to put him in a car, and it just wasn't good, right? But this guy,
Diane, Russia just keeps warning America, and America just keeps poking them in the eye. Wow, the final warning. This whole war was because they surrounded Russia's borders with NATO. That's what the Yugoslavian war was about. Bill Clinton bringing NATO to Yugoslavia to get it away from the communists. Yeah, the communist era.
It seemed like this guy was not free. That's what it seemed like. That's why I kept calling it the Stone Steps.
Yeah, Pen.
Right?
So you're saying
he walks down stone steps. This guy walks down. So no, not the coffin.
Okay. So somebody,
this is separate from the coffin.
Somebody on the stone steps, is separate from the coffin, is let down or brought down by armored officers or something, and taken and put into an armored car. People are angry and violent, and it's a very difficult time.
The streets were packed. Right. This is going to change some things also for the coffin. The coffin was just sad. The coffin was sad. The coffin, it was massive disappointment everywhere with the coffin. It was almost like people were ready to give up at that point, right? During the Stone Steps, they were ready to fight.
Yeah.
But the coffin, they were ready to give up. So that's the biggest difference, right? The coffin was absolutely in no one's timing. And as I said before, I've never seen a face here in a coffin, but the flag was just, everything was droopy. It looked like everything was dying. That's what it looked like. It's exactly what it looked like. Something died with that person in that coffin, and nothing was the same because you could feel the atmosphere changing. It was just,
Were these officers or were these people in uniform? Were they foreigners? Were they foreign soldiers? Were they from another country?
These guys had a different uniform, right? It's hard to tell who they were, but they had different uniforms. They had these strange hats on, right? Different hats. They were not strange. I should say strange. The color theme was different. It was dark, but it was different. They did go into black vehicles. These were black armored vehicles, right? That they went into. It was one sitting right there where the guy got escorted into. There's another one behind them. There was some sort of a troop or something like that in front of that. They had to get this guy in there because a lot of people, some people didn't like the guy. Some people loved the guy. Whoever the guy, when he got in there, I'm telling you, the people were tore up. They were against each other. And they were also, I could also see where they had armaments. This happens during a time. Now, before COVID hit, Pastor Paul, right? I was talking about the stone steps starting in 2011.
Yeah.
Ever since, but it really kicked off in the last 3 years because I've seen those stone steps, right? Every time this happens, my stomach drops. And because it affects the people so badly. And the people aren't really prepared for what happens next. I'll tell you this, there are folks in the USA right now that they should have never been here. Their loyalties don't line with people, nor with any ideologies that we have. But we're not talking about nationality here. That's not what we're talking about.
Right.
These folks are of all different nationalities.
Right.
They're not of any one specific religion, right? But these folks shouldn't be in this country, and they are numerous. And when this day happens, they're going to have their way doing what they want to do. But then when these folks rise, this country is going into, we're going to be reprimanded.
Okay, now we're getting ready to go into the Feast of Trumpets coming up on the 25th of September, which we know is a very, very important time in biblical. The Bible tells us to acknowledge this time. But we also know that we're going into the United Nations 77th Annual General Assembly.
Yeah.
Mike, is there anything
No
you're
way.
hearing rumbling?
77th. I never knew that.
The back room or some information you may have that you can share about what might be the main agendas for this upcoming General Assembly. I mean, is Russia going to be the main thing, or is there other stuff big?
No. It's the UN right now holds Israel in its hands. You know that. Okay, it's almost like right now Jerusalem is cut up like a pie right now. Right now it's cut up like a pie.
Yeah.
A lot of things are being held back by paperwork. And of course, what is it in Joel? When in Joel it says, I will also gather the nations, bring them down into the valley of Josephat, leave the people there for my people and for my heritage, Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land, which is what it says. So we know that the land is going to be parted. We know it's not going to be a good thing. We know that the UN believes in having the Palestinians form something. We also know that they have special paperwork prepared.
And Diane, they've got supersonic trains that go between stations underground. Like they reckon they can cross the American continent in 2 hours. And I'm pretty sure the trains are based on magnetics. I think the trains are based on them.
That allows the Palestinians to establish a state without borders. We already know this.
Yeah.
How stupid is that? That means they can form an independent nation, right? And they can be bordered off they can chop the land of Israel.
Anyway,
but then without defined borders on the opposite sides, that's foolish. Right? So, and I know there are Palestinian people out there. I'm not talking against Palestinians.
No, I know.
I'm talking about the ideology of the parting of the land. How are you going to make a nation with one border? One border concerning Israel and concerning Jerusalem, right?
You can't. It's indefensible, and that's the thing that Benjamin Netanyahu kept saying. That's what Israel has been saying. It's what America's been saying. Look,
they have dirty secrets too, Pastor Paul.
These guys.
I'll tell you that.
What's that?
They have some dirty things they're doing. I've noticed something. When I first went to Israel, right? Israel is a special land. Let's just put it this way. Before I stepped foot in Israel, right, I really checked myself from head to toe because I didn't want to step foot in Israel in combat uniform. I did not. I didn't. I really didn't, because I have a lot of respect for everything that happened.
So you were in uniform at that time.
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's kind of, you get this feeling. It's sacred. It's a different feeling. There's a reminder there. It's like a penalty is there too. Don't play in this area. So anyway, when I went there though, that's when I started to find out about some of these backyard agendas people have. Right? The UN is something else. They will speak one way in front of the people, and as soon as they get something established, they go a different direction. So they have a presentation of what they're going to do with their mouth, but as soon as they get whatever they need for whatever country they're working with, they depart from what they presented. They start doing other things. They're going to do the same thing with Israel. As soon as they get what they want for the Palestinians in this case, it'll be a joint deal. It'll be more than the Palestinians involved. As soon as they do this, they're going to part company from what everybody thought, right? And do what they want to do, because they always secure an area first, and then they go in and do other things. They do other things. They do this every single time. And here again, you're supposed to be able to trust the presentations of officials.
Yeah,
you can't do that in this world. Most of these officials are under the guise of Satan himself. They really are. They're under the guise of Satan himself. And so these guys are going to change everything. I hate it for the Palestinians. It's going to bring war to them from other nations. They think they're out of the woods. They're not. They can easily be in trouble. Iran is they're going to make their move soon. They're just not whistling Dixie. They're going to make their move soon. And they have a drone army. There's just too many drones there. And so, and it's building up Hashball with some incredible things, right? Some incredible things. And that's going to happen sooner. That's going to catch people by surprise. People are aware of this. They're not doing a thing about it. They're not doing anything about it. So
so Iran is this constant, and the fact that we want to, the Biden administration, of course, is working very hard to try to put together this Iranian nuke deal again. I understand it would include $100 billion a year to go to Iran for the United States.
They don't even need that.
Why would they?
I'm telling you right now, they don't need $100 billion. Watch what happens with the petroleum in the world. Watch what happens. Watch what happens.
Petroleum. Okay. Well, okay.
You just watch what happens.
Well, I mean, Russia's going to shut it off on Europe, right? They're already shutting it off again.
You know what? The USA consumes what, 23% of the world's petroleum. Right. 23%. So, but the order went back about 5 months ago to start retrofitting some of these wells we have in the U.S. They're establishing our pumps again in the USA. Now they said it. They spoke about that once. They never mentioned that again. I know for a fact that the paperwork has gone forward. People are getting these things retrofitted, ready to.
Okay, Kelly. Good night, sis. God bless.
Only. That's what it's for. In a time of war, not financial difficulties or anything else, but in a time of war. This will infuriate those who depend upon Russia for oil. This is going to infuriate Europe. And the UK they have bigger problems. They just have bigger problems. So we're looking at NATO. They're going to start looking at each other sideways, like somebody got cut out of the deal. And as soon as that happens, Pascal, I bet you Iran's going to make their military move, right? Their military move. Yeah. I think right now they have a count of about 2.5 million soldiers, or not 2.5 million, about 2.5 million soldiers.
Right. Wow.
Who, Iran?
2.5 million.
Yeah, about that.
Is he saying Iran has 2.5 million soldiers, or Russia?
About that, if not more, right? In other words, let's see. No, I think the count is higher than that. In fact, I don't think people are going to understand where they've been putting all these people.
Really?
I don't think they'll understand that. I don't think they'll. Iran has a lot of underground hardened facilities.
It is Iran.
They do. They have a lot of underground hardened facilities. They will make their move. This is why Israel said we got to make our move now. You know that. You know they said that, right?
They did.
They said we got to make our move
so
now. We can't wait.
Let's say the United Nations goes ahead and does this craziness. Let's say the United States don't veto it. They let it go to the floor. It gets voted and it passes. And there's going to be a Palestinian nation state without borders. And then the borders will be determined later. And you know that's going to get nasty trying to figure that out. What does Israel do at that point when they see the world has made that move? Do you expect them to get more aggressive militarily at that point?
Yeah, they're going to have to protect them. You know what? Israel is a place nobody really wants to mess with. Now, we know in Scripture that they're trampled underfoot 40 and 2 months. And we know in Scripture it took a confederate. It took a whole bunch of nations, all of them that had indignation against the Holy Covenant to go against Israel.
Right.
So when it was going to be, that's going to be bad. You're looking at just about the entirety of the Middle East with external powers just to take over Israel. But, you know, from all the wars that happened in the Middle East, Israel was about to wipe, you know, Iraq off the face of the earth. They're about to wipe Saudi Arabia off the face of the earth. They're about to wipe Iran off the face of the earth. Could they have achieved it? You better believe they could achieve that quickly.
Yep.
Right, quickly. Most of the tech that the world uses comes from one or two places. Either the retrofits from China or the true designs from Israel, right? We have cell phones because of Israel.
Yeah.
Right. We have all this technology because of Israel. Some of our intelligence practices are not coming from Israel. So it's a pretty powerful group. But what they're trying to stall them. If they can stall them enough, right? Now I have to think about Satan here. Here's what he wants. If he can stall that their abilities long enough, he can overpower them, right? And because of prophecy, I know that's precisely what he's going to do. Is because every time Israel wants to make a move, the entire world comes against Israel and says it's unfair. You're too powerful. You have to do whatever you do in force. It's too much.
Yeah, they're too
you remember
small,
Hamas? Hamas wanted to sue Israel. Hamas wanted to sue Israel, right? Because God made their missiles go off target. You remember that?
I remember that.
And they were serious.
Yeah.
So
they know the God of Israel is too powerful for them. They know that.
They do.
All right, let me ask you this. Putin and President Xi Jinping met this week. They came out with the discussion about a new world order, not the new world order that we've been hearing about the Illuminati and the global elitists and the Karl Schwab and Klaus Schwab, excuse me, and some of these guys in these secret societies. A different world order, one that includes a Russian, China, communistic, totalitarian, strongman world order that's against the West. This came out of that meeting. Is there anything about this that's really concerning to the United States and NATO?
Of course it is. Of course.
And how far does
I'll say it again, Pastor Paul. I'll say it again. In order for anybody to overcome Israel, the USA must be nullified. We have to be nullified.
That's terrible. Right? That's horrible.
Nobody can overcome Israel so long as the USA is in power. We're not going to allow that. We just won't. But if the USA is neutralized for a time, then anybody can go into Israel and do what they want to do because they won't have the backing. They get their fuel from us. They order their jet fuel from us, right? And that's how we keep relationships going. Is that each country has signed a piece of paper saying they will use this from this country and that from that country. And they have safeguards in place. Israel, it's not going to produce its own jet fuel, right? They don't have that capacity. We do, and there are certain things that Israel makes that we cannot. And we do that on purpose for relationship-wise. But something happens to the USA, knocks us out of the picture for a while, and of course the whole world turns against Jerusalem.
Oh, they will. They will.
That's in the Bible, right? Yeah. And if we're knocked out of the way, we can't do anything. So, this is an expectation. It's not too comfortable to look at, but it is prophecy because, again, if we could do something about it, we would. Right? Yeah. But the only help they get, and certainly in the book of Daniel, chapter 11, is people plead to them with flatteries. That means, well, we're going to try and talk about it and try to do something about it. But we all know how that goes. Right? But the USA will then regain its power. There's even a prophecy about the eagle in what's that, Esdras? It's a prophecy about the eagle.
There is.
How it loses its feathers and head, but it comes back. It comes back and joins with something else. And it goes against the beast. I like that part.
Well, the thing is, that's in the book of Esdras, folks, and that's in the Apocrypha, which was in the Bible in 1611. In the original King James Version of the Bible, the Esdras is one of the 7 books of the Apocrypha. I was just reading it the other day, and it does talk about this eagle. And it does come against the beast, which is interesting. Is that the United States, you think, Mike, coming back against that new world?
You know what I think? Because Christians are here, right? And I think the U.S.
certainly sounds like it, doesn't it, guys?
We'll find it. So we always find ourselves in trouble, right? Let's go ahead and face it. We become prosperous. We do a little too much. We relax a little too much. We get too relaxed. Start complaining about everything. That's the beginning of a downfall of any nation, is when the people complain. But when you complain, that's when everything starts to fall apart. We get corrected. All of a sudden, we get hungry again. We start to see, we begin to realize things. And then we'll say, no more, no more. And then that's when people with real resolve stand up high in faith, and they accomplish things for the Lord. That spirit is in us, right? That spirit is in the people of the USA. It's just that with freedom comes responsibility. And if people don't pay attention to that responsibility in their free time, they'll let themselves go. And when you let yourselves go, you get off track. And it takes a calamity to bring us back again. In fact, we wouldn't have calamities in our lives if we knew how to stay focused on Christ. But we don't. Every time we have these free moments, or we do something too good here, there, the other, we're not thinking about Christ, right? We start thinking about prosperity and all these other things, and then all of a sudden we can't keep it in balance. And so a problem comes to get us to look back to Christ again.
Yeah.
Right? And if we could look at him without that, we wouldn't have to go. Trials and tribulations, work experience and hope and all these things. Because let's face it, we get off track with freedom. And the USA has been blessed beyond measure. But we're getting off track because we're starting to complain about everything. Yeah. We're not thanking God for anything, really. We're complaining about everything. Yeah. And that's, when children get that way, you start taking stuff away. Well, where do we get that from? That's inherently built into us, right? We're going to be corrected.
Is it, Mike,
not destroyed, but corrected.
The greatest country in the world with unlimited resources and unbelievable technology. We have a bunch of babies squabbling in Washington, literally, and they really look like just silly children. They look like kindergartners, just spoiled brats. And the rest of the people are working their fingers to the bones and paying exorbitant taxes to these people who are just really out of touch with reality. Mike.
Yeah, and there's no comeback for the USA. There's no comeback for any nation. We're all going to be judged very soon. So there's no comebacks. You're right.
Am I right?
That's right.
Trump was a big comeback for the USA. That was your window of opportunity.
Well, that's why God's going to give us an alarm clock. That alarm clock, right? Because sometimes even I won't wake up without an alarm clock, right? So we all need an alarm clock every so often. That's why the Lord's going to send an alarm clock. And a lot of people out there who are not looking towards Christ, right? They're gonna wake up and they're gonna see some spiritual things.
Okay, what would be the biggest alarm clock? Think about it. It'd be the appearance of the two witnesses. That's what the big alarm clock would be. I wonder if they pick that up.
They're gonna see God's children still walking. That's what they're gonna see. They're gonna notice something about God's children they're not gonna find anywhere else. Because even in the Bible it says people are gonna hunt for the word of God, but they won't find it. They're not going to find the word of God. Why? Because the people here who house the Holy Spirit are going to be consolidated. They're going to be not in the picture anymore. They're going to be very difficult to find. And so you're going to have a lot of people here who are going to look for the word of God, won't be able to find it.
You know what I just noticed, guys? Mike from around the world speaks of Jesus and the Holy Spirit a lot, but Paul doesn't speak about it much. He just says it. I know he does in his own videos, but when he talks to Mike brings up Christ and the salvation and all that, but Paul rarely brings that up. He's just, I found that interesting.
And that's when they're going to wake up. In fact, in the Bible, doesn't it say they're going to try to take the name of somebody who believes in God just so they can escape the elements and everything else?
Well, 7 women will take a hold of every man just to have their name. Now, and another, that does say that. Okay, and this is in the end times when there must not be that many men, and the women are looking for some type of way to get resources, and they need to have some legal documentation or something legal to be able to get from the system. And 7 women will cling to every man. Shows me that there's going to be a time like we have not ever experienced coming. Mike, there's got to be. Who ever heard of such a thing?
Yeah, well, plus, God's people right now, it's in them. There's something in them. They're looking for something, Pastor. All of us are looking for something. We know something is coming. We're trying to find out what direction it's coming from. And there is a time coming. We'll start to see those things. Yeah. And when we see those things, that'll be an opportunity. Because the people who won't listen to you now, they will listen during that time, because the Bible says nations in distress with perplexity. If it would have just said in distress, we've had that before, but that's not what it says. It says with perplexity. Perplexity means they don't have a solution. That means a lot of people will turn away from science.
I never knew it meant that. That's a good pickup.
turn away from their facts. They're going to turn away from empirical data. They're going to say, what does the Lord say? That's what they're going to start saying. That's prophesied too in the Old Testament that they would say this in the end days. They're going to start looking for spiritual things. So God has given us an opportunity during this time to build up, to get ready for that, to have an answer for those who come to us and say, why do you really believe? Will God truly protect me? Will he truly save my soul? You know, and this is because that opportunity is coming. All we have to do is continue, just keep going. I would tell everybody to go stronger now than ever. This is your moment is coming. It's really coming, because we're certainly about to have celestial problems. A brand new, what are they going to say, Pastor Paul, when a brand new constellation appears? Let's see somebody explain that one. I'm waiting for that one, because I want to. You don't hear that anywhere, do you?
No,
you don't hear that anywhere. A new constellation will appear. I can tell you right now, that will herald some very evil things, because.
Okay, guys, I'm not really sure about that. He's written up, the writing underneath says, Apocrypha, first and second book of Esdras, removed from the Bible by the Protestant church in the 1800s. I don't know if that's true. I bet he don't like Protestant because he's a fan of the Pope. So I bet he don't like the Protestants. So I wonder if they did take it out in 1800.
You have a secondary system coming, you better believe it. Is it going to be inhabited? Well, we're going to find out. But we all know that spirits are real. And whatever spirits are on this earth, well, their daddies are coming. We're about to get, it's going to get rough spiritually. People are getting ready for physical things. They had to get ready for spiritual things too. It's already starting to rise. Most of the world is starting to worship devils and demons by way of chasing ghosts. And they have marked themselves for possession or for cohabitation. So people are going to change drastically.
Now, folks,
and these things will not fail to come.
I'm glad that someone just asked the question, where's that in the scripture about the 7 women to every man? Well, it's actually in Isaiah chapter 4. It is in the King James Version of the Bible. It's in Isaiah chapter 4. And here's what it's in reference to. If you read the chapter before that, if you go to the last 2 verses of Isaiah chapter 3, in verse 25, it says, Thy men shall fall by the sword, and thy mighty in the war, and her gates shall lament and mourn, and she being desolate shall sit on the ground. Then you go to the next chapter and says, and in that day 7 women shall take hold of one man, saying, we will eat our own bread and wear our own apparel. Only let us be called by thy name to take away our reproach. So this has got to be a time of after the war. After the war of some, and maybe this is the World War III. Maybe this is what they call the 6th Trumpet War. I don't know. But this has got to be bad. I mean, that's.
Yep, Hen, I completely agree. If they're not in the Bible now, that's because God didn't want them there. I don't trust Paul Begley, and he's actually bagging the Protestants there because where he says they took it out in the 1800s, he's doing that look where the finger's on the chin and the guy's looking up thinking. So, yeah, he's a Pope lover, this guy.
Well, I meant there's something bad had to have happened.
Yeah, that's horrible. Just to have to take away their Pastor, it almost seems like there's a time coming when the sower is going to overtake the reaper, right? So it kind of, I don't know, when I first heard that, it was almost like spiritual consequences that God spoke about are coming. But right now, grace and mercy are in place. So what happens in a time where grace and mercy is only with those who believe in Christ? What will happen to the rest of the people? They're going to try and find someone, right, to be out there unmarried, right? But you have a certain position, or you have iniquity on you. They can't take that iniquity away. They're going to try and find someone with a good name, spiritual good name. Like, take this away because I'm getting everything is going wrong, right? So that kind of lets me know that spiritual consequences are coming with a vengeance.
That they will be searching for a good man, someone with a good reputation or a good name, spiritually, and among the world of some way, and they're going to say, look, let me be also one of your wives, or let me have your name, if for no other reason, just so that I'll fund myself. I'll take care of myself.
Yeah, they're gonna.
Just take away the reproach, because I got to be a part of something that's good. I can't be tied to what just happened. I can't be a widow of this horrific events. And you got to understand, what could that be? Well, that would be somebody or a group of people who went against God and were annihilated for going against God. And the widows and the children were left behind looking for somebody to cling on to that could say, no, I'm married, or I'm part of this man. Okay, I'm part of him. He's a good. He wasn't part of that. We're not part of that. It's got to be something crazy. Amen.
Yeah, because if they have no spiritual consequences, they're going to have their own clothes, bread, and everything else. Just let us be part of your family.
Right.
No thank you.
Part of your
So
family.
that's why I'm so thankful for Christ, because I know this. Jesus already said. Right? Somebody asked me that. How do you know if you truly belong to Christ? Well, you believe in Him. The faith we have in Christ is given to us by God, that we may be captive Christ, and we're bought with a price.
Yes.
And what was that price, Pastor Paul? The death of Christ.
Amen.
Was the price. So God paid the ultimate price for each one of us. And if I know if I pay a big price for something, I'm going to take care of it, right? I'm not going to waste it away. God's not going to. He's not going to waste His investment in us. We're bought with a price. We're bought with a price. That's the highest price anybody could ever pay, right? So we don't have the same worries. We're being raised. Other people are about to learn a lesson, but we're being raised. So I'm so thankful for Christ, because I couldn't be here without Him, Pastor Paul. Couldn't be here without Him.
Mike, this has been powerful. I know we only went along here. I'm sorry, I didn't look at the clock. We went a little long, but wow, without the blood of Jesus, we're none of His. I mean, look, you're right. The price has been paid, and such a precious price. God gave His Son for us. You think God's going to forget about that or not protect that? Oh, no. He's going to protect that and protect those that accept that.
He sure will.
Mike, we'll be back next week. What are we going? Is there anything that's coming in the horizon we might be talking about next week?
Well, Pastor Paul, we've talked about people laying in coffins and stuff, and I hate to say it, but the new king.
Yeah.
People are going to start to notice he may not be fit for that role and position, right?
Wow.
He may not be adapted to it. In that case, there could be a handover, and things could escalate.
Wow.
They could escalate, but people will have to be the judge of that. They may see that he has a very stressful position. Can you imagine the weight?
Oh, I don't know.
Because I tell you, she held things together that the average person could not endure.
Yep.
And he may not be equipped to handle all of that, right?
Nope.
So we're going to find out. But in that case, they have to have provisions in place to pass that down to the young one.
We could go through a 1-year transitional period.
It's possible. It could be even shorter than that. So,
wow. All right, we're going to keep our eye on this. Mike's dropping a little bit of a hint here. Okay, Mike, God bless you, brother. Thank you so much. Keep on.
I said that to Gabriel and Mum. I said, imagine if they took Prince Charles or King Charles out now, and then William was thrown into the. Because a lot of people think William's on the Denver Airport murals. There's a lot of William in that. And it's about the apocalypse and things like that.
What you're doing, stay on fire and keep leading with Jesus Christ. That's what it's about. Thank you.
God bless you, Pastor Paul.
It's an honor.
It's always an honor.
It's a great honor to have you. Thank you, brother. God bless.
Okay, we don't want to hear Paul on his own. Okay, live videos. Okay. This one.
No matter what stage of life you're at, Chemist Warehouse has the range to support the health and wellness of the whole.
UFOs are real, burgeoning, and not going away. This is the weekly update. I'm going to roll the clip first. I want you to look at it. This was sent to me by a good friend, Gordy Tong, who was our producer up in Vancouver for the first UFO special that we did. It's number 1. If you open up the text box right below this video, you can watch episode 1 and episode 2. You can also see the trailer at the very end of the show for episode 3, which should be pretty much available in about 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, something like that. It's been handed off to Doug Diamond at Doug Audio, and he's balancing all the sound. And I've got a few more things to do on the timeline, minor things, and then it goes up to the duplicator. So we will be doing a pre-sale on that. So we'll get into the clip and so much more after a word from our sponsor, Noble Gold. Central banks are increasing their gold reserves due to increasing global financial crisis concerns. Billionaires like Ray Dalio to giant fund management companies like Goldman Sachs are turning to physical.
Wow, you give it a plug for 3 minutes then.
Investments.com. That's noblegoldinvestments.com. So once again, I'm going to roll the clip. Gordy Tong sent this to me. It was taken several years ago at a UFO conference, and it's very interesting what the gentleman speaking says, and I will weigh in on this on the other side. Here's the clip.
Health and stuff like this. She told me the story. A lot of experiencers will tell this story. She said, I've been told that I'm going to be taken, that there's an event happening and I'm going to be taken and my husband's going to stay and my children are going to stay. And I said, this is like the end of the world type stuff. And I said, well, aren't you kind of pissed off that nobody else is coming? She said, yeah, but what are you going to do? I mean, this is what I'm being told. And a lot of people are being told this sort of thing, that something's about to happen. People have a mission. They're being trained for something. They don't know what it is. They say something's going to happen. And we just are told that when the time is right, we'll know what to do. So you have this sort of thing. And then you have this connection to the stuff that's shown on the ship. And the thing that's shown on the ship is, number 1 is the nuclear stuff, which I've dealt. And the second one is the environment. Everybody has shown this thing with this environmental damage where the world is just contaminated. And what I say is the experiencers are the chosen people. They're the ones that are being that have the message, who we should be listening to. And one of the things that was very important, and I'll leave you with this. It's a song by Neil Young. I was contacted by an experiencer who told me the aliens are telling me that they're influencing music and putting their lyrics into music, and I didn't really believe him. And he said Neil Young is one of them. So I started to watch. Neil Young writes a song called After the Gold Rush. It is the message that they see on the screen. This is exactly the environmental message. And what the song After the Gold Rush is we're treating the world like a gold rush. And when the gold is gone, it's going to be a ghost town. And the silver seeds, the flying saucers, are going to come and they're going to take the chosen ones, the ones that they're dealing with, they're going to take them to another planet. Now, Neil Young wrote this song in 1968. Dolly Parton asked him, why did you write the song? What does it mean? He said, I have a stone. I have no idea what I was writing. But it was written in 68, before all this environmental stuff started, and it is the message. And one of the important things is, Thom Yorke has played the song, so has Patti Smith, and so has Dolly Parton. I believe they're all experiencers. The two top ones definitely are experiencers. So you have these experiencers who are replaying this song. This song gets redone by people over and over again. So I'll leave you with the last part of the song, Neil Young's story, and that he says is a dream. He writes it in 1968, and it is the message that I think the aliens want people to know.
What happened to the sound? There's no audio, guys. It's not me. Oh, come on.
When I was 25, which, believe it or not, is about almost 50 years ago, we're not quite there yet, but we're getting there. Actually younger, more like 20, 21, so that is 50 years ago. Because I'll be 72 this year. Yeah, it's the years just fly by. But I digress. I was new age, completely new age. I was with the guru. My third eye was open. I was meditating, hours every day. I had given up all my worldly possessions, which wasn't much, by the way. And I was, off in the Guru's Brothers Orchestra. And I was writing and composing for a 56-piece orchestra, which was really amazing. That was really cool. But the rest of it was very much New Age, Eastern mysticism, Third Eye Open, divine music, all this kind of stuff. I eventually, when I left the Guru, I wound up with spirit guides and Carlos Castaneda, Vision Quest type stuff, if you know what that is. And I did all that. And then I became a Christian when I was 30. That's 42 years ago. So here's the deal. I was told years and years and years ago when I was a New Ager, okay, that when they show up, and we're talking about the whole UFO phenomena, which is one of my mainstays, it's my wheelhouse, right? That when they show up, they would say that some people would vanish. And the excuse that the so-called extraterrestrials would give us was, well, these people really aren't ready for the ascendancy into a higher realm of consciousness. They're not ready for the golden age. So we've taken them to another planet where they can progress through different lifetimes, reincarnation, which of course I don't believe in, different lifetimes, and finally reach the point where they too can come up to this new paradigm shift. Now I heard this over 50 years ago, literally, when I was, maybe even before I was 20, okay? But definitely when I was in the ashram and completely immersed in all things New Age, that's when all this was, from 20 to 25, that's when, and I believed it, completely believed it, that this is what's going to happen. A few years ago, there was a movie called Knowing, and maybe John Adam can give us just a little clip of what that looks like. Nicolas Cage was in it. And something is going on in the film. It's really well crafted. But of course, what this is a rescue in the movie Knowing. It's that only the chosen people will be taken off the earth when the great cataclysms come. Of course, that goes completely against what the biblical narrative states. So let's back up here. In the clip I just showed you, he's talking, the gentleman speaking in that clip is talking about a rescue from the extraterrestrials, that only some people were chosen. And we need to be around a chosen person so that when the cataclysms happen on the earth, we'll be taken. Well, that's modernity. That's just a few years ago. Knowing the same thing was promulgating that idea that there's going to be a rescue of only certain people. The rest of us will go, the hell in a handbasket type thing with all these disasters and perhaps nuclear war and everything else. But there's going to be a rescue. But then you flip it, and it's completely different from what I heard, let's say 50 years ago, where the people who weren't ready for the paradigm shift in consciousness will be taken to another planet. Let's walk through it from a biblical prophetic lens, which of course is my worldview. What was written will come to pass. What was foretold is unfolding, even right now in modernity. So what we see on Fox News, almost on a weekly basis, of course, right now they're completely obsessed with the royals, and that's fine. They can do what they want to do. So I don't go there. But the bottom line is, Fox News has been rolling out, specifically on Tucker Carlson, what I would call the rungs of disclosure, on the rungs of a disclosure ladder. That's the analogy I'm using here. So we're getting up there. Amy Hornacek is talking about alien abductions and the breeding program. Tucker's touched on it. Brett Baer touched on it, that some women who were taken by UFOs become pregnant. So it's no longer the stuff of tinfoil hat or conspiracy theorists. It's out in the open. It's a question, what is the church doing with it? For the most part, nothing. I will be at Yuba City this weekend. I will be talking about all of this in depth. I hope to see you there. This is basically my last conference this year. My plate is just too full, and we'll be gone for over 10 days in September, or take a little time off, and then in October I fly back to Oklahoma City, and I'm on with Mondo Gonzalez, Gary Stearman, Prophecy Watchers, talking about the third film. By the way, the trailer will be shown at the end of this clip. So here's what's going on. According to the biblical narrative, that clip and what I heard 50 years ago is not what's going to happen. What is going to happen, what was written, is that, first of all, we have not been appointed to wrath. So you can argue that all day long. We can look at Noah as a type of rapture. we can look at Lot as a type of rapture. And I realize some of you are hunkered down and can't wait to go through the tribulation. That's fine if that's what you want to believe. I'm not going to argue it. I have a completely different perspective, a completely different position, which I think is the correct biblical one. And I say that with all humility, but I think it's correct. Behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all die. Some of us will be changed at the last trump, and up we go. So we're not appointed to wrath. We know that. And the tribulation is God's wrath on the planet. When the Lamb opens that scroll, it is, in my opinion, an indictment against planet Earth. Why? Just look around. So it's interesting how the so-called extraterrestrial ET agenda is talking about the chosen ones who will take the chosen people off the planet. But then, no. I've heard something else completely different. Remember, that's 50
Okay, Lynn, good night. I'm glad you found us. God bless.
years ago, that the people who aren't ready for the big global paradigm shift in consciousness will be taken to another world where they can evolve more spiritually. Of course, they're talking about people like you and me. So what I think is going on here is something we are ramping up. I mean, there's no doubt about it. We are drawing close to some sort of a tipping point. The fact that it's being rolled out, and what amazes me, was sort of, what's the words I'm looking for? Not depresses me. In some, that's too strong of a word. But what causes me consternation is the fact that most churches won't even talk about the subject, and yet it's being rolled out on mainstream media. Everywhere it's being rolled out. When they show up, everything completely changes. Life as we know it completely changes. The biblical prophetic narrative, in my opinion, states this, that we go up and then they show up. We go up, they come down. Many of us are looking very expectantly to this September. We're in it right now. Does that mean I'm setting a date? No, I'm not. But I look at the political climate. I look at the global climate all around me, and all the signs are there. Are we in the tribulation? In my opinion, no, we're not. Not even close. But the birth pangs are certainly here. Wars and rumors of wars, famines, pestilence, earthquakes in diverse places. Troublesome times.
Okay, so who agrees with us? We're in the time of sorrows.
Of the nights, right? Know this, in the last days, perilous times will come. And I think we're here. I think we are in the last of the last days. I'm not a rapture date setter, and I'm certainly not going to do that now, but I am expecting. I'm kind of looking around, kind of going, you can't fix this anymore. We go up, they show up. We go up, they come down. Something is holding them back. There's no doubt about that. They just don't pop out and go, hi, we're here. Why the cloaking? Why the secrecy? Why the decades and decades and decades of this hidden breeding program? Read Dr. David Jacobs' book, Walking Amongst Us. He doesn't believe in what I believe. He has no supernatural worldview like I do, no biblical worldview, but he looks at what's going on and he's afraid. He's very afraid because there is a breeding program that's happening, which ties right into the book of Daniel. Their seed will mingle with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave to them. Whose seed are we talking about here? Goes back to Genesis 3:15. So I find it really interesting that they're talking about the chosen ones, and some of these people will be taken out before the cataclysms happen, before the upheaval happens on planet Earth. But that's not what the Bible says. It says exactly the opposite. Those who are, remember what Jesus says, when you see all these things, what things? Wars, rumors of war, famines, pestilence, earthquakes in diverse places, troublesome times. Stand up, look up, because your redemption is drawing nigh. Stand up, look up. What are you looking up for? You're looking up for your redemption. What is that? In my opinion, it's the rapture. You may argue. Please don't write me an email. I'm not going to argue with you. Believe what you want to believe. You have the right to do that. I have the right to believe what I believe. But I certainly do hold tenaciously onto the pre-tribulation rapture position. And I think we are going to go up at some point. When? This year? Yeah, maybe. If not, no worries. Hands on the plow, isn't it? Which is why I'm doing this show every single 5 days a week, sometimes 6 or 7 days a week, which is why number 3 in our UFO film is going to be out, followed by number 4, which is on the abduction phenomenon. Folks, my hand is on the plow. I'm not escaping into anything, which is why I'm here on a daily basis. But I'm looking at what's going on, and I weigh it against the biblical prophetic narrative. And you know what? I think we're in a window of time where things could change and change rapidly. If we are looking at the time where the dragon manifests, and I believe we are, then we're seeing everything that sets him up. Everything. It's
when the dragon manifests. Do you remember last week, Mike from around the world said there's been plans in place for 70 years because they couldn't let a queen do it. It had to be, the authority had to be given to a male, a king. Oh, my voice is playing up.
All here. It's all firing on 12 cylinders, if that's possible. Anyway, folks, I will be at Yuba City. Check that out. Here's the trailer for episode number 3. We will be doing a pre-sale on that. If you want all 3 DVDs, we're going to package them together. You'll be able to buy all 3 at a great price. Anyway, here's the trailer. Hope to see you in Yuba City. Thanks so much for watching.
They got their knowledge from the heavens.
Saw it, said, whoa, that's a UFO.
This orb comes up and it's bright orange. I'm not wanting to make full eye contact with these things. But from what I did see when I did look at them, they're like they're soulless.
It was right directly above us right here, and then it started tilting and moving up like that.
All of a sudden I was being lifted about 3 feet off the ground.
It was going slow. I was walking right underneath it.
Okay, guys, I'll finish with a Skywatch one. I think it was yesterday's. Oh, man, didn't it load? Yeah, it did.
Lives right now. Could their existence explain? Is it possible that the entities that we've known as the gods of the ancient world have come back and are affecting our lives right now? Could their existence explain everything that is now transforming our families, culture, technology, and even our government? Jonathan Kahn joins us today to start an explosive series that you're not going to want to miss. Welcome, everybody, to Skywatch TV. I'm Joe Artishorn. We have an explosive series of shows for you that are coming imminently. But before we dive in, how many of you are excited and I would even say ramped up about this week's special guest? Please join me as we welcome Messianic Jewish leader and New York Times best-selling author, Mr. Jonathan Kahn. What a pleasure to have you in the studio with us, Jonathan.
Great
Thank
to
you for
be
being
here.
here.
Interesting, he didn't call him Rabbi Jonathan Kahn. He called him Mr. Jonathan Kahn. Isn't that because Christ said, do not call anyone Rabbi? Wow, that was interesting. Good on you, Tom.
Beautiful. First time here.
Seeing the new studio, that's right. It looked a lot different the last time Jonathan was here. We were in the old studio. Jonathan, you've written a new book called The Return of the Gods. And I want you folks to see this up on your screen here. Jonathan, you're one that my family and my team have viewed for a long time as one that we believe has a prophetic instinct. Now, I'm not saying Jonathan describes himself as a
Jonathan Kahn showed me the mysteries. That's what converted me to Christ. It made me believe 100% the Bible is correct.
prophet, or that he would tell you this. I'm just telling you that
So Jonathan Kahn is one of the reasons, or one of the main reasons, I become Christian.
Family has watched your work for a series of years, and we feel like you're very in tune with the Holy Spirit. And often when you put these books out, they're not just entertaining.
They also serve as a warning, often a prophetic view of what we think is imminent in terms of Bible prophecy, world culture, the things that are happening all around the world. And you're back now with this new book, The Return of the Gods. And I want to dive right into the content right away because we have way too much to cover in the limited time that we have. Why write a book about the return of the gods? I mean, what does this book aim to reveal?
Well, first, I knew I'd be doing this, I mean, for a long time. And I think it was a little apprehensive because I knew this is going to be explosive when this comes out.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But the thing is that it's happening. And in fact, things are so much accelerating in our culture.
Yes.
I mean, we're so much so that even people who are not believers are saying, this is craziness. What is going on? What is possessing these people?
Yes.
And so I knew this was the time. Actually, I tried to write it a year ago, but it was like, if I may say so, all hell broke loose.
Okay.
And it was like I was being prevented from doing it. I mean, and so I found this is the time it came out. And as you said, you know, this is, well, I'll say this, because these are the very first interviews I'm doing. And the reaction of those who've seen it said, like, wow, everything makes sense now.
Yes.
And we are at such an important time where believers are on the defensive, where there's so much darkness taking over the culture in America and the West, that there's a spirit of almost timidity, like, or fear of saying anything. And we can't be that way.
Right.
And so this is to show God's people, to open up a mystery, you know, remove the veil of what is actually happening. What are we actually dealing with? Which is actually very biblical. People in the Bible dealt with this. We've not been used to this, but we're here now. So I believe it's crucial for now. And also there's people in believers' lives who are being so affected, we all are, but are being so affected, to give them, to arm them, to be an antidote to it, as well as to reveal.
Yeah. Your book makes an amazing parallel, too, between demonic possession and what you believe is happening with our entire nation right now. And I think all one has to do is take a look out their own window to see what Jonathan is saying in terms of people that they're just crazy. It's just crazy. It's just crazy. We, in this country, we don't have media for the most part anymore. Most Americans, despite being propagandized, know what's really going on in terms of our elections, air quote, in terms of our politics. What is this parallel that you talk about in the book, The Return of the Gods, between demonic possession and what you believe is happening with our entire nation at this point?
To set the stage, the things we know as gods, most people think, okay, this is fiction, this is mythology, and of course that's a part of it. But the Bible actually reveals there's more to it. In the Hebrew scriptures, when it speaks about they sacrifice to the gods, it uses a word called the shedim.
Okay.
And the shedim literally means entities, spirits. So not just gods, there are spirits behind the gods. The gods are the masks. You know, when it got translated into Greek and then came into the New Testament, when Paul writes of it, the word used for shedim is daimonia, or we get the word demonic from it. But what it's saying is that behind these gods are these principalities or entities, and the entities, you know, it's going they will play on the mythology. You know, mythology will follow them to a degree, and they will also use it and play, and it will reveal things about them. So the first thing is that. Now the second thing is that all over the world there were gods. You know, it's really a strange thing to think about. No matter where you went in the world, everybody was worshiping gods. You know. But this is part of it. It was something spiritual behind it. And the thing is that if these are principalities and all these cultures were given to the gods, that means they were given to spirits, to demonic spirits. That means there is a possession factor. And when you look at all these pagan cultures, you actually see they all describe possession as part of their worship.
Right.
Part of it.
Yes.
And it wasn't just, you know, the Oracle of Delphi. Here's this woman who's giving these revelations from the god, supposedly. But she's possessed. She's foaming at the mouth. She's shaking. She's convulsive. This is possession. And it wasn't just a person. We think of possession as a person. Possession can be an entire culture, can be a civilization.
Okay.
And so that's setting the stage. So that's where we were, you know. And so I know we're going to talk about what happened to that and could we return to it.
Are we to assume then that these gods, they've not been on vacation? What would allow them to return, or maybe if they're a part of this resurgence now that you're describing?
What happened was Jesus happened, Messiah happened, God happened. I mean, the only place you could say that wasn't subject was Israel. But of course, when they turned away from God, they became subject.
Sure.
But when God came into the world, he had the power, he cast out. Power of ekbalo, cast out. So it's God versus the gods, and it's God versus the spirits. So he gave the power to his disciples, and then he sent the Bible, the Word, the Spirit, into the nations, into the pagan world. So the first time you're having this head-to-head clash. And so when you have that, you're having God come into the pagan world in power. And what happens, you have this clash. And so you have, when you read the book of Acts, this possessed woman is following Paul, and then there's an uproar over the gods, and the first Christians were persecuted. There was a war going on because they would not worship the gods. And in fact, the great persecution, it's called the great persecution of Diocletian, it started when he consulted one of these oracles who said, so a possessed woman says, yes, persecute that. So there's a spiritual thing going on. So the thing is that eventually, though, the gospel prevailed. And so what happened is you have a massive casting out of the gods. The gods leave the temples, the shrines, they're abandoned, they're gone. But if behind the gods are principalities, then they still exist, they don't die. And so the question is, where do they go? Yes. And what's been happening? And there's a clue that Jesus gave that's going to answer that. Okay.
So what is the clue?
Well, remember when the Lord said, he gave a parable, and he said, a spirit goes out of a man. And he said, then it goes into the wilderness, the dry places. Then it says, let me return to my home. And talking about the man, comes back, finds it clean, swept, it's empty. Says, I'm going to go back, gets other spirits. 7 more spirits come. The man is repossessed, and it's worse than before. Well, we look at that and we say, okay, that's a lesson about possession. Don't go back. And that's true, but that's not what he's talking about. He's using it, but he says, so it is with this generation. Not one person, generation.
Right,
and so when you take this to its ultimate, now put it together, Western civilization, the civilization we've been part of that has really taken over the world. It is the only civilization, it was once possessed, that has been exorcised. That's what makes it so unique, by the gospel. But the warning is, if this civilization, if it ever turns away from the gospel, away from God, away from the word, then the spirits are going to return to repossess it. Okay. They're coming back worse. And so what's going to happen is the same spirits that once possessed this civilization are coming back now. And the same gods or that are coming back now to the West, to America, to repossess it. And if you want to understand what's been happening to this culture for the last 50, 60 years, it's that.
Yes.
Now, you were the first person I ever heard make that connection of a nation being possessed. And what I love about that is in Deuteronomy 32, you have God, giving the nations over to these gods. So it actually says that. So when I heard you say that, it rung a bell right away. He actually gave these nations over to the gods. And that could be exactly what happened, a nation possessed.
Yeah. And historically, this is one of the things that Sharon and I were stunned by when we researched our book, Giants, Gods, and Dragons, the great persecution of Diocletian.
Yes.
Known that in history, the oracles of Apollo all around the Mediterranean that were consulted by the Roman emperors were falling silent, and they were actually telling them, we can't speak, we're not hearing from the God anymore because the righteous men are inhibiting our ability to hear from the God.
That's true. It all dried up. There's a famous thing. It's called the last oracle of the order. Said, "My water has drawn up. There's no more." Right. It stopped it. Quick thing with that. I will go into it. But look at the case of, for instance, Germany turned away from the gospel. Look what came in. Yeah. That is a civilization possessed. Look at what happened to the Soviet Union. Civilization possessed. Yeah. But now it's happening broad all over the world.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and we're in a culture war because the church is being silenced more and more as all of these things come to fruition. There's a privatization going on within the church where everything is becoming hate speech.
Yeah.
So fighting against it is sabotaged as well.
Once the gods or these principalities gain power, establishment, then it's every knee shall bow. Then it's
right. I keep telling my friends, God is in the hurricane. Because I was just having this conversation yesterday with a dear friend, Jonathan, who's launching a new television show, and he was picking my brain on how to get network time and so forth. And I said, here is the upside to all of this darkness. If there is an upside, it is an unprecedented opportunity for men to distinguish themselves as real men of God and stop all of this goofing around and being 35 years old and playing video games. Not that there's anything wrong with playing video games, but letting that be the sole consumer of all your time, sitting there on autopilot watching Netflix and not being engaged in your communities and not, you know what I'm saying? Like not having a passion to stand for the gospel of Jesus Christ and be effective and influential. It's kind of time to start pushing back, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Well, as the dark gets darker, the lights have to get brighter. Right. And this is really putting us back. People would say, I wish I could live in biblical times. This is congratulations, we're here. This is
oh yeah.
So be careful what you wish for. Yeah, because I mean, look at the apostles. They were dealing with this. They were dealing with an anti-Christian culture and with principalities. So Elijah, so Moses. This was actually the norm. It has been abnormal that we haven't been dealing with it, but now it's coming back with a vengeance.
I want to ask you one more question before we go to a break, and then I'm going to show everybody at home how they can get a copy of The Return of the Gods. Your book, and this is huge, it mentions a key to uncovering what's happening in America, and you actually titled this portion of your book, The House of the Spirits. What does this warn us of?
Well, that is based on what Messiah said, that the house being, here's what it is, being empty. It's been cleansed, but it's empty. It's saying it's not going to remain empty. It's going to be filled with something else. And so when and we'll get to this, but when America started putting out God, it was emptying the house. And so it's not going to remain neutral. It's going to come in. And what we're seeing now is the answer to that. It's all coming in what we opened up.
Man, oh man, are you guys keeping up? We're going to take a quick break to show you at home how you can get a copy of the brand new book, The Return of the Gods by Jonathan Cahn. We'll see you on the other side of this break.
The gods that ruled the ancient pagan world have been restrained for ages, but now the time of their return has finally come, and they are angry. Skywatch TV is proud to present The Return of the Gods collection. When you order Jonathan Cahn's explosive new book, The Return of the Gods, from the Skywatch TV store, you'll also receive the Jonathan Cahn collection on DVD and the never-before-released video entitled Gods of the Bible Unveiled. Jonathan Cahn is back with his most explosive book ever to reveal the ancient mysteries that have been playing out in our modern world, which all signal the return of the gods. In this stunning book, you will uncover the mystery of the House of Spirits and how it affects an entire nation. Mysteries linked to the exact dates of pivotal Supreme Court decisions. The sign of the gods from ancient Mesopotamia has now appeared in America. How ancient mythology has played out scene by scene on the streets of New York City. And the identity of the dark trinity of gods that have infiltrated America, such as the Possessor, the Enchantress, and the Destroyer, and so much more. Also included in this must-have collection, Gods of the Bible Unveiled. Join Skywatch TV's own Drew Graffia as he sits down with groundbreaking author Derek Gilbert to present the brand new, nearly 2-hour DVD that systematically breaks down how to understand what the gods in the Bible are and what their place in Christianity is. In this instructional guide, you will be taken step by step through why God calls his sons gods in the Psalms, how the fall of Genesis is only one of 3 divine rebellions, the biblical origin of the pagan gods and demigods, and how the Greek gods and titans found their origin in our Bibles. This instructional DVD has never before been released and was specially produced for inclusion with this limited time collection. But that's not all. In this amazing offer, you'll also receive the Jonathan Cahn collection, featuring 3 uncut, extended, and 2 hot-for-TV episodes on the return of the gods that will leave you speechless, and 3 additional episodes of Jonathan's best interviews with the Skywatch TV investigative team. Sold separately, these items hold a retail value of over $70. Yours now for your donation of only $35 plus shipping and handling. So be prepared to understand the gods like never before as you expose their dark agendas for you and your family. The Return of the Gods collection, available now at skywatchtvstore.com. Order now or call 1-844-750-4985.
Welcome back to Skywatch TV. I'm Joe Horn. This is too much. This is explosive. We're talking about the new book by Jonathan Cahn, The Return of the Gods. Right before the break, we were actually talking about the House of Spirits. We're going to switch gears here because, again, there's never enough time to cover all this, Jonathan. You mentioned a dark trinity of gods returning at a very specific decade in our history.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that?
Yeah. One question is, if the gods are returning, which gods particularly? And the thing is that our civilization and America, in many ways even more so, Western civilization, its spiritual DNA is from Israel. It's that's what it's all. And America was actually founded to be a new Israel in the New World. And so the thing is that, remember John Winthrop, who gave the City on the Hill the sermon, he said, if we follow God, we'll be the most blessed people like Israel. But if they missed the second part, if we turn away from God, he says, if we are seduced by gods, then these things are going to come upon us. Now, the thing is that what's going to happen is if we turn away, as Israel turned away from God, new God, then the same principalities that came to Israel, that possessed Israel in its fall, are going to come back to us. And that is what I call the Dark Trinity. I won't go into all of it, but I will tell you, the first one is called the Possessor.
Yeah, I wanted to ask,
The second is called the Enchantress, and the third is called the Destroyer.
And we're going to be covering these over the weeks ahead, so don't go anywhere, but you want to start by explaining who is the Possessor?
Possessor, that's actually what his name means. Possessor, it also means the master, it also means the owner. And in Hebrew, you would say that Baal. We call him Baal.
Oh, wow.
But this is a real, but remember, this is a principality. He had many names, he had many appearances, but here's the God, he was the God of fertility, he was the God of the storms, he was the God, he promised that Israel, it says, I will make you rich, I will give you prosperity, and they turned to him. But he is the God who owns you, who masters you, and who possesses you. And actually, in the times of Rome and Greece and Rome, he was merged with another god that we know, who is Zeus.
Okay.
And then Jupiter, which is the chief god of Western civilization before it got cleansed out. So you have that. And the thing is that, but for Israel, he was the God who turned them away. You always see him, he's always first. He's the principality that turns a nation that knew God away from God. And he's the principality that drives God out of the culture. So what would happen if he came back to America? If he came to America? Well, like when? Well, the key time here is you go down to the early 1960s. That's when America opens the door. It starts emptying God out. Takes God from school, the prayer from school, then the word. And that's where it comes. That's when but here's the thing. The only thing that was protecting us, in a sense, from all these things that have been forces in history has been the gospel. You take that out.
Yeah.
This is now you're going to have what you have now. And so think about that. They took God out of school, and now look what has come into school. That's that. They didn't know back then. It seemed like a little thing. It's a big thing.
Oh, it's huge.
So at the same moment, early 60s, that's when you see the Spirit comes in. And the Spirit, and it starts driving God out of everything. What did Baal do? He drove God out. Drives God out of the public square. Out of the Bible says he caused Israel to forget God. Well, the first thing was America wasn't turned against God first. It was America forgetting God. Yeah. And then it says he calls them to turn away from the commandments. Now, they have the Ten Commandments. We have literally struck down the Ten Commandments, just like Israel did. Yeah. Literally. And he is the alternate God. In Baal, with the worship of Baal, it was materialistic, it was lewd, it was vulgar. So you're seeing a vulgarization of our culture. And all these things that we're saying, even wokeness, all goes back to that. The mission of Baal is to take a Christian nation and turn it into a pagan one.
Wow.
So I probably know the answer to this question, but do you believe then that the Possessor is back? He's here. He's absolutely in the middle of our politics. He's in the middle of our culture.
Everything. And he's the one. I'm sorry. He's the one. He's like that first spirit, and he's the one who will get the other ones.
I noticed that it's also influencing the church in a lot of ways, because the more that you push God out, culturally speaking, the more that people in church, and I'm talking very, very, very devoted believers, don't recognize when there's something that is just blatantly sinful right in their face. One of the things that Allie and I wrote about in a previous book was the fact that churches all throughout the state of Texas had adopted women getting together and practicing exotic dancing. And they said, as long as you consider it exercise, but that kind of a spirit, they have no idea that traces all the way back to Baal and the astral pole. It's like it contributes to and perpetuates a complete. Well, the society becomes so desensitized that they think that things are neutral that are not neutral.
Yeah, the Maypole celebration that was, that goes back hundreds of years ago, civilization. But this is signaled very early on in the United States, 1799, as they were arguing what they were going to call the legislative building for the Congress. The architect wanted to call it Congress House, but Thomas Jefferson insisted that it be called the Capitol, because that's the name of the temple of Jupiter in Rome, the Capitolium.
When Baal was taking over the culture, the worship of God got merged with Baal. And so it actually caused the people to compromise, and that's, you see that spirit of the church as well.
See, and you said that we're in biblical times. That's exactly what happened in the book of Judges. Their tolerance of things led to apostasy.
Mm-hmm.
They lived with the Canaanites, and then they became the Canaanites. Basically, they did their practices.
Do you feel like one of the symptoms of the return of the possessor has anything with how he seems to manifest in regards to the modern computer?
Yes.
Is this relevant?
Yeah, well, this has affected all thinking, and the thinking in the culture, we don't even realize how deep it is. So a few things. One is, when you get into a pagan mindset, when the pagan it's a paganization process that's happening. And what happens, instead of having one God, you have many gods. So instead of having one truth, you have many truths. So therefore, there's no more truth. Therefore, it's your personal truth, my authentic truth. You also, with paganism, you create your own God. You build your own God. That means you're creating reality. You're causing reality to bend. So that we see that in the culture as well. If I think I'm a man, I think I'm a tree, I have to bend. You have to bend to that. Another process, I'm just giving you real quick, another process of Baalization is that when God goes, when the deity goes, everything gets deified. Whether it's sex, whether it's money, everything becomes like that. Now let me get to the computer. The word Baal means master. In the Bible, it says, so they serve the Baals, not just Baal, in many forms, many masters. So what's happened to America is we become mastered we're driven, we're addicted more than ever because of this. But the thing is that when Paul speaks about idols, and he speaks about the idols fashioned by man, he uses the word techne. So, and it says in the Bible, it says in Hebrew, it says, so they served the works of their hands. In this, they served the techne of their hands. So technology comes from this. We are now serving our technology. The computer is the most, incredible idol because people are actually serving it. And what happens is, it says they became like their idol. So now people are becoming increasingly joined to the computer, becoming less human, less able to relate, while computers are becoming more human. And it's taking, this is all the process of Baal.
How many of you have read through the Bible and this is the first time you're hearing that perspective? Just a show of hands. I'm serious. I'm sitting here and I'm looking at Derek and he's taking notes. Why do I feel a 5 and 10 with this premise going? No. In your book, you did talk quite a bit about Baal, and we are really short on time. So if we have to, we'll hold some of this over for next week. But you talk about Baal being connected to animal man, and that's a quote from the book.
Yes.
You want to explain that?
Yeah. The paganization or the effect of Baal is to break down distinctions, like one of them is between human and animal. So we see from that, you see everything happening. One is man is degraded, viewed as an animal. You see transhumanism. You see, why did I look at you?
And because he's part of the milieu.
And when you look at Baal, Baal had a helmet with horns. He was represented by the bull. He's man and animal. You see all these ancient images, the gods. So they put that together in their artwork. Now we are doing it in a much greater way. We are now having scientists merge the genes of animals and men together as they did in the pagan world, but high technology.
In your view, did the sign of the possessor actually appear in America at some point?
Yeah, there's actually more than one, but there's the key thing. Baal was represented by a sign all across the Middle East, and it was a sign of a molten beast or a molten bull. And so here, if the sign appears in America, it appeared in New York City. Okay. They built this molten bull, of course, and it was linked to our prosperity, which is exactly what Baal promised. Right on Wall Street originally, and it was the sign of, not only is the sign of Baal possessing a nation, it's also a sign in the Bible of a nation that has known God and is turned away. That golden calf, and that's actually bull calves. So when the nation turned away from God, they turned. So how do we have a sign here? And that sign was placed originally right in Wall Street, right where Washington was sworn in as the first president. And he gave a prophetic warning to the Harbinger. He said, if we ever depart from God, the blessings are removed. And here he is, his statue was looking over the bull. So yes, the sign of the possessor having possessed America.
Wow.
With just a couple of minutes on the clock, unfortunately, we're almost out of time. Jonathan, your new book, The Return of the Gods. In your view, why do you think this book is so timely, so important? people need to get this book.
Because every single person, unlike other things we could write, every single person is dealing with this. In one way or the other. Every family in some way is dealing with it. Every Christian in some way dealing with it. Everyone has people in their lives who are very much affected by this, no matter what. And this is going to touch every realm. And so and we are so much, believers are kind of on the defensive with all that's happening. One, it's to arm every believer. It is to reveal a mystery that's kind of mind-blowing, but it's also one that touches every one of our lives. Also to give it to people in your life who are dealing with this to get free. And also I believe the Lord wants us to stand, to be bold. And revival comes in the Bible when the altars of the gods are broken and when the gods are exposed.
Yeah.
And so this has to be our moment. So I believe it's going to be, that's why I wrote it, to do all these things.
Yeah, it is a huge missionary field in this country right now. That's why I implore viewers at home, people here in the audience, to take this season. And earlier I mentioned, that we don't want to see darkness overcome America or the world. But if it's coming, if God is permitting certain prophetic events to unfold, our response as Christians should see it as a silver opportunity to get out there and be distinguished from the world around us.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? To look different than the world appears, to do it now, to do it because you love Jesus, and because each one of you watching this program has a calling on your life. You're sitting on the couch and he's been working in here. He's been persuading you. You've been feeling his pull. It's time to say yes to the Lord and watch what he does with the time that he's given you. Unfortunately, we're all out of time, but hey guys, once again for Jonathan Cahn, thank you so much for being here. Was that amazing? Join us next week as Jonathan Cahn returns to unveil.
I'll do one more LA Marzulli one. He's got one that only goes for a few minutes, I think, if I remember right. Which one was it? I already showed it. Oh, here it is.
What's your plan?
Kia, movement that inspires.
Do you remember how Facebook went down in October of 2021? And not just Facebook, but many websites around the world were down for hours. Folks,
Yes, I remember that.
And that's how we make our living on the net. And when that goes down, people don't buy books and DVDs. And anyway, I digress. That is how easy it is to shut down access to websites. There was another internet outage in Canada just recently where people could not even use debit cards. I remember that also. But internet may still be working. It's domain names that do not work. This is why you cannot rely only on old school internet websites. You will simply be cut off from information during a societal collapse or an emergency. Thankfully, there is now a social media platform called Bastion that does not depend on legacy internet.
Okay, it's flashing,
we just started,
glaring.
and I ask that you would just go check it out. You'll see it right there. You can see it in front of you. It's under Marzulli. So now you can follow me there. You can download their app through a link below this video. It works like Bitcoin, speaking to computers around the world. So you can never be blocked from seeing me and other bloggers, other people who create content.
It's glaring. I don't know why it glares like that.
Bastion is anonymous. Even has Tor network built in, so there's no need for a VPN. You can just follow me there. Bastion devs announced that any followers who comments my videos on Bastion at least twice will get a gift of 2 pocket coin automatically on their Bastion profile. So this is pretty cool. That means you're earning money. Get the link below and be free from centralized internet. Let me show you how easy it is to register. Once you download the app and install it, select sign up. You will admire your boldness and your courage. And you had an experience. Something happened to you, which was rather dramatic. Tell us about that, please.
Yes, sir. I was partying with some friends in 1999. I was a senior in high school, and I was belligerent, and they couldn't talk any sense into me, and I left the party. We were waiting to buy psychedelics, and I'm very ashamed of that. But I left anyway, in horrible state, and I rolled my car 4 times end over end and mangled this little Mitsubishi Eclipse, a 92 Eclipse. And I was laying there, and the car was upside down when I came to, and I saw the light under my hand. That was the first thing I remember after the last thing I remember, seeing the road in my face in the window as it smacked the pavement. And I heard a voice. I don't know if it was audible. I don't know if it was in my head, but it was real. It said, "Jesse, come out here and talk to me." And I was kind of bewildered. But this calm came over me. You know, well, that's odd. Maybe they ran my tag. Maybe they know who I am at this point. But I highly doubt it. You know, it's like somebody knows this is me. So I crawled out of the car. And before that, I had a bowl of marijuana packed, and I was selfish, and I was trying to find that to toss the evidence. You know, I was just in this panic, fight or flight mode. And as I climbed out, I saw this African American man, well dressed in a blazer, and he was driving a black BMW. And I thought, well, this is 2 or 3 in the morning. This is early. Maybe, you know, somebody else is out here. He's the first guy on the scene. And I said, "Oh God, thank you, thank you." He's like, "Jesse, I'm here to keep you calm." And that was weird, even in that state. You know, I was intoxicated, but that was weird. That he said those words. You know, those words.
Wait. Let me just stop you right there. So this man whom you've never met before calls you by name out of the car. That's red flag number 1. Red flag number 2. He's well dressed, BMW. Red flag number 3. I mean, not that, you know, people aren't well dressed, but at 3 o'clock in the morning, it's like, what? And
like you said, too many red flags.
Yeah, and then red flag 3, and this is not even in the first minute. I'm here to keep you calm. I mean, that's okay. So good story there. Incredible.
And I guess, you know, in my mind, I think God knew what I needed to hear. Well, I don't think that. I know that. You know, He always knows what we need, whether we do or not, or we think we do or not. And I'm talking to this man, and this calm, supernatural calm, this divine calm comes over me. And he says, "I'm a doctor." I'm like, well, that's odd, because the one person I would really like to talk to right now would be a doctor. You know, and I'm talking to this man, and he says, "It's okay." I said, "Will you call 911? He says, "It's okay. I've already called. The authorities are on the way." And I'm thinking, oh God, yes. You know, it's gonna be okay. I'm alive. That's the first thought in my mind. It gives me peace after this doctor, this well-dressed doctor at 2, 3 in the morning. And I crawl back in the car. I'm thinking, I got to find that bowl of weed. I got to toss that. I can't go to jail. I'm already a little bit drunk, or a lot drunk. Somehow I wasn't arrested. I don't understand this. But I crawled back in the car against his judgment. He didn't want me to do that. He said, "No, don't do that." So I crawled back in, and I'm feeling glass, just digging into my arms and my knees. And I'm looking for this bowl of weed, and then I hear another voice, and I see lights flashing, and this is the EMTs, and I know this by the lights. And I couldn't find it. I gave up, you know, and like I said, it's selfish. So that's all I cared about, was not going to jail. And I crashed in someone's yard, and then I crawled back out, and that man was gone. His car was gone. Now, this was not, you know, even in this state, I know this was not, much time had not elapsed. Not enough for him to vacate. You know, if he was the one who found me on the scene, he wouldn't have left anyway, and my rationalization. And I crawl out, and these EMTs grab me. They're like, "You got to sit down. You got to sit down." And I said, "I can't. I'm in shock at this point, at least what I think was shock." And I popped my knee back into its socket. It was dislocated. And they said, did you just pop your knee back into its socket? I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "You've got to sit down." And they pulled me into the ambulance. I said, "Where's that African-American man that I was talking to, the doctor?" He said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "He's the one who called you. He told me." I said, "Son, you crashed at 2 o'clock in the morning in the 1300 block of Shallowford Road in Chattanooga. There's no one out here except people whose yard you crashed in. They're the ones who called the authorities." And that man was gone like a vapor. Just gone. And I knew at that moment that God had sent that man there to keep me safe, to keep me calm. I don't know if it was my guardian angel, but it was an angel, in my opinion. I've had other experiences not like that, but I know we have angels watching over us. They're here right now. They're among us all the time.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, I just think, I just love the way they, and this is biblical. I mean, I know that there's scoffers out there, there always will be. Paul tells us that some of us have entertained angels unawares. Now, you can think of, you can run with that. I mean, 2,000 years ago, roughly 2,000, what does that mean? Well, it means exactly what it says it means. And I believe you had an angelic encounter. I think it's incredible. And you felt it yourself. You felt the supernatural calm come over you. Now, what I want to drill into that a little bit. How that felt like that when he calls you by name, you come out and you feel this incredible calmness come over you. What did that feel like? What was that like?
Well, first of all, when I heard my name and given the situation, I knew that this was something bigger than me going on at this point. And I knew, I just felt this weird, like, you have to talk to this person. This is feeling like this is a must. You're not gonna hide from this man who knows your name after all this happened. So I crawled out, and as soon as I saw this man, this calm, like I said, this calm came over me. And I think that was God. I felt like it was God telling me that it's going to be all right. Like, you're going to probably be in some trouble, and you deserve that. But you're going to walk away with your life, and you don't need to worry about it. And I mean, I did worry, but not like I would have had he not provided this security. I can't really explain it any other way. I felt secure. God was in His grip. We are always in His grip.
Amen. So you go to the hospital. Tell us pick up the story from there. You're in the ambulance and take you to the hospital.
They did not take me to the hospital. They checked me out, and I busted my head up pretty good, and I still have a scar here on my nose, and I'm 40 years old now. So I mean, that was a long time ago. I still have the scar, and they took me to the hospital, and I told my dad, and my dad is he's my best friend. I love my father. Well, my dad. There's only one father, but I love my dad, and he believed me. He didn't question me, and that's all I needed. I haven't told anybody else. Maybe 2 other people before now, and that was all I needed. Was my dad to accept it, and he told me, "Son, I was an angel."
Amen. Absolutely.
I think you're right.
That's fantastic, Jesse. Thanks so much for coming on. I'll give you the last word. Just close us out, please.
I just want to thank you for your contribution to the ministry and what you've done. A lot of people don't understand, and they skepticize and they criticize what they don't understand. But I'm telling you right now, like your video yesterday, the doctor talking about the first, second, third heavens that Paul described. These are all real. We are facing princes and principalities. This is all very real.
Okay, guys, I'm out. See you tomorrow. I've got some work to do after I hang up. Hopefully I'll show up tomorrow. God bless, guys. See you tomorrow.